In a world torn apart by war, the sky burned a menacing crimson as death loomed over the battlefield. A majestic castle stood amidst the devastation, crumbling under the weight of an unprecedented assault. Explosions rocked the earth, tearing through the very foundations of the once impenetrable fortress. Bodies littered the blood-soaked ground as desperate warriors clashed in a hopeless struggle for survival. A lone combatant, battered and broken, desperately tried to hold the line against the overwhelming enemy forces. But his resistance was futile, his body finally giving out as he collapsed into the dirt, surrounded by the fallen. The clash of steel echoed through the blazing ruins, a symphony of destruction playing out across the war zone. Amidst the chaos, heavily armored assassins carved a bloody path, their blades moving with lethal precision. Each strike was merciless, cutting down any who dared to stand in their way. Even the most skilled defenders were completely overwhelmed, falling one by one to the relentless onslaught. The enemy's power was absolute, their dark magic shattering the defenders' weapons with a deafening crack. A warrior's desperate parry ended in tragedy, his blade snapping into pieces as the fatal blow landed. This was no ordinary enemy, and the defenders were no ordinary soldiers. They belonged to the legendary Ragnar clan. As a grand ducal household, they were the absolute rulers of the northernmost edge of the continent. For over 1,000 years, they had stood unyielding, acting as the great northern wall that protected the entire empire from total annihilation. Their overwhelming strength was not just born of rigorous training, but of a unique, almost mythical lineage. A single drop of their blood carried an ancient and terrifying power. They were said to be the direct descendants of dragons, inheriting the absolute might of the mythical beast. Because of this special constitution, every member of the Ragnar bloodline was essentially born a monster. They possessed exceptional magic power, limitless stamina, and a natural affinity for combat that defied all logic. A true Ragnar was a genius with the blade, capable of commanding awe just by holding a sword. But this absolute rule of talent applied to everyone in the clan, except for him. Coughing up blood on the desolate battlefield, his life slowly drained away as his enemies closed in. He was completely broken, falling to his knees as the fires of destruction raged all around his exhausted body. A cold voice pierced through the chaos, reminding him of a cruel, inescapable reality. No matter how much effort he poured into his training, some walls simply couldn't be climbed through sheer willpower. The world had a very simple phrase for his absolute helplessness: he was utterly talentless. Despite carrying the proud Ragnar name, he hadn't inherited a single drop of their legendary power. A sinister figure emerged from the shadows of the ruins, mocking the dying young master. It was Rendon, his own trusted swordmaster, looking down at him not with pity, but with absolute disgust. Rendon laughed sadistically at the boy's pathetic state, revealing that his daily tireless training had been nothing more than a joke. His desperate struggles to overcome his lack of talent were a source of mere amusement for the very man supposed to guide him. Hard work meant absolutely nothing in a world ruled entirely by innate, overwhelming power. Rendon sneered, calling him the perfect imbecile, a fool who should have just hidden away in the shadows instead of picking up a sword. The master confessed his ultimate betrayal. He had purposefully approached the boy just to sell out his faction from the inside. Every lesson, every correction had been a calculated lie designed to teach the boy completely useless techniques. The dying heir could only scream in agonizing realization as the absolute depths of his master's treachery finally set in. Rendon kicked the boy viciously, sending his broken body sprawling across the blood-soaked ground. Stepping firmly on his student's chest, the master delivered the final crushing truth. The destruction of his entire world, the merciless massacre of his family, it was all because he was hopelessly weak. The boy's eyes widened in sheer horror as the weight of his master's sickening words crushed his spirit. He looked helplessly toward the burning horizon, the once beautiful Rose Palace now completely reduced to ashes. His cherished home was crumbling into ruin, devoured by the relentless flames of a planned betrayal. His loyal household members, the people who had sworn their lives to protect him, were slaughtered like animals in the dirt. The traitor casually walked through the horrific carnage, genuinely enjoying the total despair painted on his student's face. A devastating sight caught the boy's attention, instantly freezing the blood in his veins. Lying motionless in the dirt was the cold, lifeless corpse of the one person who had truly loved him unconditionally. His own mother had been brutally murdered, her life cruelly extinguished in the ensuing chaos. The traitor leaned in close, making absolutely sure the boy understood that his sheer incompetence was the root cause of this tragedy. Because he was the untalented bastard of the clan, he couldn't protect a single thing he held dear. In the brutal, unforgiving hierarchy of the Ragnar clan, only the overwhelmingly strong possessed the right to survive. And he had been born as the absolute weakest link, a glaring flaw in an otherwise perfect monstrous bloodline. Rendon smiled wickedly, raising his blood-stained sword to deliver the final inevitable execution. The boy gritted his teeth in silent fury, his vision slowly fading as the last remnants of his life force slipped away. With a swift, merciless motion, the traitor brought his heavy blade down to end the pathetic tale. A desperate, agonizing scream tore from the boy's throat as the cold steel violently pierced his flesh. The master didn't even flinch, pushing the blade deeper with cruel, calculated precision. Blood sprayed across the fiery ruins as the boy's battered body finally went limp. The traitor coldly withdrew his weapon, visibly annoyed that his former student was taking so long to die properly. With a final, dismissive command, he ordered his surrounding men to quickly finish off the dying heir. Lying helplessly in a pool of his own blood, the boy stared blankly into the burning sky, waiting for the end. His vision blurred heavily, the roaring inferno around him becoming a chaotic haze of crimson and black. A profound sense of total helplessness washed over him. His entire life had been nothing but a series of miserable failures. He was forced to watch everything he ever loved burn to ash, utterly powerless to stop the inevitable. As the final darkness crept in, a single devastating tear rolled down his dirt-streaked, bloodied cheek. His final fading thought was a desperate burning wish for the one thing the world had so cruelly denied him. If only he had been born with even a fraction of his terrifying clan's legendary talent. Would his tragic fate have been different? Could he have somehow saved his mother from the slaughter? The blistering flames consumed his vision completely as his fading consciousness slipped into the absolute void. Suddenly, a cold, mechanical blue screen flickered to life in the darkness, displaying a single grim message confirming his demise. But death was not the end. An unknown, dormant trait instantly activated, forcibly initiating a return to a distant regression point. A blinding, ethereal pillar of light descended from nowhere, pulling his soul violently back through the very fabric of time. The boy gasped sharply, his eyes snapping open in pure shock as the heavy smell of smoke was suddenly replaced by crisp morning air. Standing right in front of him, looking years younger and completely unharmed, was the traitor Rendon. Rendon coldly remarked that the boy seemed overly tired, casually lowering his wooden practice sword. The boy froze in place, completely disoriented, staring at his youthful hands in absolute, unadulterated disbelief. Unaware of the massive internal turmoil raging inside the boy, the master dismissively declared their morning lesson over. Without warning, a glowing blue system window materialized right in front of the boy's startled face. It was a bizarre tutorial quest directly ordering him to do the unthinkable, punch Rendon squarely in the face. The boy stared blankly at the floating holographic text, utterly convinced that his dying mind was playing a final, cruel trick on him. He naturally assumed this was just a fleeting, chaotic flashback, a final hallucination before completely passing away. Throwing his wooden sword aside, he tightly clenched his trembling fist, choosing to completely ignore the mounting confusion. If this was truly a final gift from the heavens, a fleeting chance to let out his boiling anger, he was going to take it. With a sudden furious roar, he launched his tiny frame forward, aiming a desperate wild punch straight at his betrayer. He threw his entire body weight into the reckless strike, determined to pummel the man who had mercilessly ruined his life. But Rendon merely raised an unimpressed eyebrow, completely unbothered by the sudden childish attack. The boy's small fist collided awkwardly with the master's jaw, but the physical impact felt pitifully, devastatingly weak. Rendon barely even flinched, staring down at the struggling boy with a heavy mix of pure annoyance and disdain. Realizing how incredibly soft and ineffective his punch was, the boy deeply questioned why this dying dream felt so frustratingly realistic. Before he could even fully process the thought, Rendon immediately retaliated with a swift, brutal kick to the chest. The boy was violently sent flying across the expansive training grounds, landing incredibly hard on the solid stone floor. He desperately clutched his stomach, coughing up saliva as a sharp, genuine flash of pain shot through his fragile body. Pure shock widened his eyes. If this was simply a dying dream, he shouldn't be able to feel such vivid, agonizing pain. Rendon sighed heavily, coldly lecturing the boy about his pathetic lack of progress despite the fast-approaching awakening ceremony. The specific words hit the boy like a physical blow. The fabled awakening ceremony was a monumental event from exactly 10 years ago. His master brutally condemned him for lashing out, sternly stating that a true heir of Ragnar should have used a sword, never their bare fist. Without looking back even once, Rendon turned away, officially ending the disastrous and confusing training session. The boy remained collapsed on the hard ground, his mind frantically reeling as the completely impossible truth finally began to sink in. Nearby, the other observing disciples sneered openly, whispering harsh insults and viciously calling him a talentless moron. They openly and loudly mocked his sheer weakness, cruelly branding him an imbecile who was too incompetent even for an illegitimate child. Ignoring the harsh jeers of the growing crowd, the boy touched the rough dirt, feeling the distinct gritty texture against his skin. The lingering sharp sting in his gut, the crisp cold air filling his lungs, absolutely none of this was a fading illusion. He looked up at the vast clear blue sky, a stark beautiful contrast to the heavily burning heavens of his gruesome death. This wasn't a hallucination. He hadn't just vividly imagined the past few impossible minutes. The earth-shattering realization slammed into him. He had actually truly regressed a full 10 years into the past. The mysterious system chimed once more, a bright, clear notification suddenly interrupting his overwhelming disbelief. A congratulatory message flashed brightly before his eyes. He had successfully completed the bizarre, seemingly suicidal tutorial quest. His seemingly foolish, impulsive action of directly punching his swordmaster had actually triggered a massive hidden reward. The legendary mythical trait, Ragnar's talent, long denied to him his entire previous life, was finally and officially activated. The glowing system directly prompted him, silently asking if he wished to immediately receive his hard-earned, life-changing reward. With absolutely no hesitation and a heart completely full of burning determination, he firmly accepted the system's prompt. Instantly, a massive, swirling vortex of radiant energy violently erupted all around him, heavily shaking the very earth beneath his feet. The sheer, concentrated force of the sudden awakening created a massive, blinding pillar of light that shot straight into the clear heaven. The system confirmed the miraculous transfer, officially and permanently locking in his completely newfound destiny. A blinding, holy aura enveloped his tiny frame, as decades of hidden, monstrous potential violently awakened within his very core. The notification promised the truly impossible. His growth rate would now completely shatter all common sense, accelerating at a terrifying speed. As the surrounding disciples watched the blinding, miraculous anomaly in absolute shock, a completely new era officially began. A final glowing message appeared before his determined eyes, instantly starting his next major quest as the true legend of the regressed swordmaster was finally set into motion. The imposing silhouette of the Rose Palace looms overhead, a constant reminder of the high-stakes environment Theo finds himself trapped in. Inside, his instructor, Rendon Harvey, doesn't even bother to hide his disdain, openly mocking Theo's lack of talent. It's a cruel setup, with Rendo acting as a tutor while secretly harboring malicious intent for his student. Rendon feigns a professional commitment, promising to mold Theo into a warrior before the upcoming awakening ceremony. But the betrayal is clear. He's merely putting on a show for Lady Cecilia Ragnar, who has entrusted him with Theo's growth. Cecilia, blinded by the facade, asks for more focus, unaware of the rot festering in her own home. Rendon bows, promising to keep Theo busy day and night, ensuring he remains broken under the guise of rigorous training. He scoffs at the thought of teaching Theo properly, fully intending to keep the boy weak. He views Theo as nothing more than a failed reflection of his mother, a lost cause born with a tainted lineage. For Rendon, this gig is nothing more than a payday, a chance to profit from the misery of the Ragnar family. He's even being paid by a mysterious benefactor to ensure Theo never succeeds, effectively sabotaging the boy's future for personal gain. He sneers at the title of tutor, laughing at the irony of being paid to destroy the very person he's supposed to be training. Rendon views Theo as an imbecile, a stepping stone for his own rising status. Deep down, he relishes the role of the shadow puppet master, manipulating the strings of Theo's life. He chuckles to himself, dismissing Theo as an idiotic loser who will never amount to anything. The weight of his past life hits Theo like a physical blow, 10 years of suffering and death, all gone in an instant. He has returned to the past, and with this second chance, he knows the future must be rewritten at any cost. He stands in the training ground, keenly aware of how fragile and powerless his current body truly is. But then, he remembers the system, the mysterious message window that changed everything. As his resolve hardens, he pushes forward, activating his hidden potential. He won't just survive, he will become strong enough to make Rendon pay for every insult. He commits to the path of vengeance, knowing the road ahead will be paved in sweat and blood. The system presents his new mission: train his body to the absolute limit. The progress bar starts at 0, a daunting reminder of how far he has to go. He recalls his past life working in the shadows of the intelligence agency. He wasn't a hero there, he was a nobody, relegated to the information team because he lacked the raw power to excel. But the knowledge he gained in those years is a weapon, and he knows exactly how to use it. He envisions the legendary Bloody Sword Emperor's elixir, the key to transcending his physical limitations. He understands its true value, a secret that will only come to light in the years to come. The secret manual is the missing piece of the puzzle, and he holds the advantage of knowing its contents before anyone else. The extreme training that once crushed him in his previous life now feels like the only way forward. He realizes his lack of talent was just a failure of method, not potential. Everything he once thought impossible is suddenly within his grasp. With the power of Ragnar's talent finally awakened, the limits of his body are beginning to shatter. He stares into the void of the message window, confirming that the impossible is finally happening. His stats are climbing, and for the first time, he sees the percentage toward his goal moving upward. The observers on the sidelines can't believe their eyes, wondering how he has found such endurance. He refuses to break, pushing through the fatigue that would have destroyed him in his past life. His determination fuels him. He will run until his legs give out and swing until his arms refuse to move. The exhaustion is overwhelming, but the prospect of becoming truly powerful keeps his focus razor sharp. Every breath is a battle, but he's already made more progress than he ever did in his entire year. The system tracking his growth is the only companion he has in this grueling silent war. Even the training ground manager, Evelyn Nereville, begins to take notice of the strange, relentless intensity. She watches from the shadows, smoking in disbelief as the boy refuses to quit. She wonders if the rumors about his lack of talent were wrong all along. Theo pushes himself to the brink of death, gasping for air as his body screams for rest. He is completely spent, yet he refuses to let the quest slip away. The progress toward his goal is painfully slow, but it is moving. He keeps his eyes fixed on the progress bar, ignoring the pain coursing through his limbs. The fatigue from the last few days has culminated in this singular moment of desperation. He collapses, the weight of the effort threatening to pull him into darkness. Every muscle fiber in his body is shredded, leaving him breathless and broken on the stone floor. He notices something terrifying. The progress percentage actually drops when he tries to rest. The system is ruthless, demanding absolute consistency if he wants the reward. The realization strikes him. There is no room for weakness in this path. He forces himself back to his feet, driven by an anger that refuses to die. He won't let a moment of rest stand between him and his revenge. He's nearly there, the final stretch of the challenge finally within reach. Every swing of his sword is a desperate plea for strength. He pushes himself beyond what the body should be able to endure. His lungs burn and his vision blurs, but he continues the cycle. He is determined to see this through, no matter how much his body protests. He swings with everything he has left, fighting the internal decay of his own weakness. The end is in sight, and he refuses to let the opportunity slip away. The final effort is a blur of movement and sheer willpower. He fights until he can barely breathe, pouring his entire existence into the training. He is gasping for air, the agony finally reaching its peak as the system signals the completion. The notification flashes before him. The tutorial is finally over. He has survived, and the rewards are about to change his life forever. His body hits the cold ground, the adrenaline fading into a deep, hollow silence. He lies there, barely conscious, staring at the message that validates all his suffering. The reward is more than he dared to hope for, a massive influx of power from his past life. He struggles to keep his hand steady, reaching out to accept the system's gift. The final choice is simple, and he presses yes without a moment of hesitation. The surge of magic floods his senses, a violent rush of energy he hasn't felt in a decade. He awakens in an unfamiliar room, the weight of his exhaustion still clinging to him. He looks up to see Evelyn Nereville standing in the doorway, her presence casting a long shadow. She doesn't wait for him to recover, immediately asserting her authority. He tries to make sense of his surroundings, the fog of training still clouding his mind. She confirms it was her who brought him here after he collapsed from his insanity. She doesn't mince words, warning him of the dangers of his own recklessness. Opening a mana hall before the official ceremony is a taboo, a rule that carries a heavy price. She questions him, her eyes searching for the truth behind his sudden surge in power. He remains composed, even though the consequences of being caught are life-threatening. She presses him harder, demanding to know what happened in the training ground. She witnessed the mana wave herself, a phenomenon that shouldn't exist for someone like him. He deflects, feigning innocence despite the power now coursing through his veins. She doesn't buy it, but she can't prove that he has broken the forbidden law. He internally acknowledges the danger, knowing he's playing a game with death. If they knew the truth about his mana hall, he would be hunted down immediately. He maintains his facade, looking at her with a calm that hides the storm inside him. The interaction is tense, a silent standoff between the student who knows too much and the mentor who suspects everything. She keeps her guard up, waiting for him to slip, but he gives her nothing. He hides the depth of his transformation, keeping the truth locked away. As she finally turns to leave, he realizes that the path of the sword has only just begun. He is left alone with his thoughts and the residual power of his reward. He checks his status, confirming that his hard work has borne fruit. The system verifies that his bonus reward has been successfully claimed. He can feel the magic of his past life settling into his new, stronger body. His survival was just the beginning. The war for his future is now officially underway. He feels the pulse of a dragon heart within him, a power that defies all logic and history. The secret to ultimate power lies in the dragon's heart, a treasure that defies the laws of human nature. While dragons harness this manhwa with ease, humans have always been limited by their own fragile biology, forced to store their energy in the lower abdomen. Every warrior of the Sword Clan dreams of obtaining a dragon's heart. It is the quickest, most intoxicating shortcut to overwhelming strength. Yet for all their ambition, no human has ever truly transcended these inherent limitations, until now. The impossible has happened, and that immense power is now pulsing within his own chest. He can hardly believe the sheer magnitude of the quest rewards he has just received. But this incredible fortune has landed him in a precarious, life-threatening situation. He stands before Evelyn Nereville, a high-ranked swordswoman who retired after losing her arm, now serving as the manager of Training Ground Number 4. She was once the legendary commanding officer of the White Armored Dragon Cavalry, a woman whose skill was so absolute that even the demon dragon himself held her in high regard. Above all, she is known as a woman of ironclad principles. Status and raw strength mean nothing to her compared to honor. She has zero tolerance for cowardice or dishonesty. Years ago, when his past self had been too arrogant and inflexible, she had even abandoned her post as his mentor. He knows the truth all too well. If she ever discovers the dragon's heart hidden within him, there will be no trial, only immediate execution. Yet he realizes that her arrogance and her quickness to pass judgment are the very weaknesses he can exploit. He dares to challenge her, asking if she truly believes she can handle the consequences of accusing him falsely. He questions why she is so eager to execute him based on nothing more than a fleeting, groundless suspicion. He is ready to turn the tables, using her own rigid adherence to rules against her. He warns her that if her accusations are proven hollow, it will be seen as an insult to the entire Ragnar name. She believes in rules, but he knows how to manipulate them. There are absolutely no exceptions in her world, and that is exactly why she is going to fall for his trap. She reaches out, expecting to find the typical manhwa, only to come up with nothing. The shock is visible on her face. She was absolutely certain of his lack of potential. Panic begins to set in, but the impossible reality is right before her. There is no trace of a manhwa, and that fact defies everything she knows. He has pushed her to the brink, watching as she offers her own life to atone for her incorrect judgment. She is completely broken by the realization that she was wrong. She prepares to pay for her sin with her life, her resolve shattered. She stands defeated, waiting for the punishment he is supposedly entitled to deliver. But he knows the truth. The dragon heart is unlike any ordinary manhwa. It can be controlled, masked, and hidden completely at the will of its master. He realizes he can conceal his power whenever he chooses. He also knows that the secret of humans hosting a dragon heart is something the world won't discover for years to come. She will never, not even in her wildest dreams, figure out what he is hiding. He plays the part of the gracious heir, telling her she did only what she felt was necessary. He claims that few would have the courage to demand the truth from someone of his standing. He respects her strength, and he knows that settling her debt is a move that will pay dividends. Furthermore, he knows the fears that plague the instructors, the worry that a manhwa might overflow if opened too early. The irony is not lost on him. He is genuinely touched that someone would actually care about the safety of the bastard of Ragnar. He thanks her for her concern, masking his true intentions behind a veil of gratitude. He possesses both the dragon heart and the memories of 10 years of mastery from his past life. This time he will become an unstoppable force. A few days later, the training continues under the watchful, malicious eye of Rendon. Rendon scolds him, insisting that he isn't getting the form right. He demands that the strike be angled differently, barking orders with constant disdain. He wonders how many times he has to listen to these worthless instructions. It's a strange feeling, getting stronger day by day while forcing himself to play the part of a weak student. Listening to Rendon teach is a test of patience he barely passes. He silently curses Rendon, marking him as a target for his eventual vengeance. He realizes that Rendon isn't just a bad teacher, he is deliberately sabotaging him with flawed, bizarre technique. A deeper conspiracy is taking shape, and he is certain there is a mastermind pulling Rendon's string. The person responsible for his past death is within reach, and he is determined to find their identity. He knows he has to stop playing along with this charade. He interrupts the lesson, snapping back at his instructor. He has no intention of listening to these lessons any longer because they are nothing but trash. He openly mocks Rendon, questioning how someone with such pathetic skill ever achieved a mid-rank status. He realizes now that the commission Rendon received was never about teaching him. It was a bribe to keep him under close surveillance. He senses the threat of low-ranked demonic beasts mocking his teacher's inability to even handle them. Rendon is stunned, struggling to process the blatant disrespect. He confronts Rendon directly, exposing the true nature of his assignment. With a smirk, he pushes the confrontation further, watching his instructor lose control. He questions if Rendon is even listening, his insults cutting deep. He calls out the utter incompetence of the techniques he is being forced to learn. His plan is simple: drive Rendon to resign in shame. If he pushes hard enough, the desperate instructor will be forced to reach out to the mastermind behind this scheme. The pressure is mounting, and the rumors are already spreading throughout Camellia Palace. Word has reached the ears of others that the bastard of Ragnar has challenged his own instructor to a duel. They laugh, convinced that he is merely blaming his teacher for his own inherent lack of talent. They eagerly anticipate the outcome, hoping he ends up permanently disabled. They don't care about his fate. To them, he is just a nuisance that needs to be discarded. Even the Hounds of the North are watching, their cold calculations showing no empathy for his plight. They refuse to let their guard down regardless of how weak their target appears. The 9 dragons are keeping a close eye on the situation as well. They dismiss his potential entirely, claiming that talent is the only thing that matters. They mock the concern of others, wondering why anyone would waste energy worrying about such a failure. Yet they acknowledge that within the Ragnar bloodline, the impossible can happen at any moment. A single spark in the wind can eventually grow into an inferno. They see a silver lining in this duel, believing it will resolve their problem once and for all. The instructor is their weapon, and they expect him to finish the job. A week has passed, and the training ground is filled with tension. He realizes things have escalated far beyond his original plan of just getting Rendon fired. The quest objective flashes before his eyes, a singular directive: fight Rendon and win at any cost. Rendon didn't mince his words, looking down at Theo with utter disdain as he declared his skills to be nothing more than trash. He cruelly cut ties, firing Theo on the spot and telling him to get lost. Theo grit his teeth, his mind reeling. He couldn't just let this go. His mission was at stake. He wanted to lash out and beat the man to death, but the cold reality of his own lack of skill held him back. For now, he had to bide his time, separate himself from the situation, and gather more intelligence on his enemy. He realized that if he left now, the entire mission would be an absolute failure. He had to find a way to convince Rendon to change his mind, or at least buy himself time. Desperation forced him to plead with the young master to wait, arguing that this termination violated the established rules. He threatened to take the matter to the tribunal, hoping to shake Rendon's resolve. But the system had other plans, triggering a tutorial quest that demanded he fight and win against Rendon. Rendon mocked him, suggesting they settle this the Ragnar way. Theo realized that meant a duel, and the words echoed in his mind as he pondered his next move. Rendon clarified that the rule of the strong would dictate the outcome. It was a calculated gamble, but it avoided the messy involvement of the tribunal. They would simply follow the will of the victor. Rendon grinned, realizing this was the perfect opportunity to eliminate his problem once and for all. The heavens seemed to be favoring him, setting the stage for an easy victory. The match was scheduled for 1 week away, giving Theo just enough time to panic. Deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't remotely ready to take on someone like Rendon. The mockery was already starting, with whispers that he couldn't even swing a sword properly yet. Observers were shocked, questioning if someone truly bearing the Ragnar name could be this pathetic. They labeled him a disgrace, the Ragnar's cripple, certain he didn't stand a chance. It was inconceivable to them that he could ever defeat a seasoned mid-rank swordsman. Rendon stepped forward, carrying the weight of a mid-rank fighter, looking down at his opponent with chilling confidence. He offered Theo one final chance to apologize and end this farce before it began. He warned that there was no need to gamble his life over something as hollow as pride. Theo looked back at him, unimpressed, retorting that he should have been the one saying that. Rendon's patience vanished, and he threatened that if Theo didn't accept his termination, he'd walk away a one-armed man. He had briefly considered sparing the boy out of pity, but Theo's defiance had sealed his fate. He decided he would make it look like a tragic accident. He would kill him right there on the training ground. The outcome was already decided in his mind, and he felt no guilt over the impending slaughter. He convinced himself that killing the boy was actually a better outcome than letting him continue his incompetence. He taunted Theo, offering to concede the first strike as his teacher. Theo braced himself, steeling his resolve for the clash that would determine his fate. The air grew heavy as the two men locked eyes, the silence of the arena amplifying the tension. Steel met steel with a resounding ring that echoed across the field. Theo prepared to make his move, knowing this was the moment he had trained for. The clash was immediate, the shockwaves of their meeting rattling the nerves of everyone watching. The observers couldn't believe their eyes, gasping as they watched the display. The initial exchange sent sparks flying, marking the beginning of a brutal test. Rendon's sneer faltered slightly as he realized this wasn't the pushover he had anticipated. The surrounding crowd watched in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. The speed of the exchange was blinding, leaving the spectators in awe of the sudden shift in momentum. Rendon continued his barrage, his strikes heavy and aimed with lethal intent. But Theo held his ground, his movements sharper than anyone had expected. The crowd erupted in shouting, stunned that the so-called imbecile was actually managing to hold his own. They couldn't reconcile the boy who couldn't swing a sword with the one currently fending off a master. Fear began to creep into their voices as they realized the boy might actually survive this. Rendon was furious, unable to understand how his student had suddenly closed the gap. He recalled the legendary Hounds of the North, thinking that even they couldn't explain this surge in power. The impossibility of it gnawed at him. There was no way the imbecile of the Ragnar clan could challenge him like this. The gears in his head turned, realizing that someone had to be behind this, providing the boy with secret training. He confronted Evelyn about how she knew about his secret dealings. She revealed that she had been watching him closely, unsettled by the strange techniques he was teaching. She had ordered a shadow investigation, and the truth had finally come to light. Back in the training ring, the instruction was blunt: make it more like a right angle. Theo struggled to adjust his form, finding the intensity of the request excessive. Rendon seethed, wondering in a fit of rage where this hidden monster had crawled out from. Theo realized that in his past life, Evelyn had never discovered the truth, making this a pivotal deviation from fate. He wondered if his own actions during the Manhwa incident had finally piqued her dangerous interest. The investigation had been thorough, and the threads were beginning to unravel. The trail of breadcrumbs led directly back to the dark heart of the Camellia Palace. The revelation of the palace's involvement hit him like a physical blow. All of this, the schemes and the betrayal, was it truly just for the sake of the throne? Bitterness welled up inside him as he cursed those damnable bastards. Evelyn noted that it was quite impressive for him to have uncovered such a deep-seated conspiracy. Despite the breakthrough, Theo knew he still wasn't quite at the level required to crush Rendon completely. Evelyn dismissed his self-doubt, claiming he was simply underestimating his own untapped potential. She was confident, almost eerily so, that he had everything he needed to come out on top. Rendon, meanwhile, was losing his composure, demanding that the boy grovel and beg for mercy. He was desperate to reclaim his lost authority, promising a fake forgiveness if Theo just knelt. Theo didn't flinch, his defense tightening as he continued to parry every desperate blow. Rendon was spiraling, shocked that his attacks were being deflected with such ease. The scene was chaotic, a flurry of steel that defied the expectations of everyone in the arena. He questioned his own eyes, wondering how such a dramatic growth in skill was even possible. The realization that he was being pushed back filled the observers with disbelief. The whispers turned into murmurs of genuine respect for the boy's form. The strategy was working, and the secret training was bearing fruit in the most dangerous way possible. Rendon had no right to act as a teacher, and he was finally paying the price for his arrogance. Theo felt a surge of grim satisfaction. Securing Evelyn's support had been the best investment of his life. The pieces were falling into place, but there was still a lingering question that haunted him. He had to know why Evelyn was going to such lengths to ensure his success. Was this just a byproduct of their previous encounter, or was there something much deeper at play? Evelyn admitted there was a personal motive, but it was far more calculated than mere repayment. She revealed that there was someone else involved, someone who had an insatiable appetite for talent. Rendon couldn't shake the doubt. Had the boy truly been talentless, or was he playing the fool the entire time? The mystery of his evolution left him questioning everything he thought he knew about his student. Rendon shouted across the field, demanding to know who was truly pulling the string. Theo retorted with a cold, sharp question of his own. Did he really think he wouldn't notice the garbage lessons he'd been fed? Rendon sputtered, calling the accusation absurd and doubling down on his own hard work. Theo cut through the noise, pushing him into a corner with the direct mention of the Camellia Palace. Rendon's forced confidence shattered as his secret alliance was dragged into the light. He questioned the cost of losing a limb, forcing Rendon to stare into the abyss of his own failure. Theo didn't stop there, his momentum shifting into a final decisive strike. Rendon screamed in pure, unadulterated rage as the imbecile finally dared to strike back. Theo felt the change in himself. He was stronger, and he knew he could push even further. He threw Rendon's own words back at him, taunting him with the irony of his current downfall. It was a moment of reckoning, a brutal demonstration of the very rule Rendon had used to oppress others. The quest was complete, and as the notifications flashed before his eyes, the path forward finally cleared. The battlefield remains deathly silent as Theo stands tall, having just dismantled his opponent with frightening ease. His former tormentors look on in disbelief, unable to comprehend how a mere apprentice could make such short work of a seasoned mid-tier swordsman. Theo stares down at the fallen, the cold reality of his past life's trauma fueling a new, ruthless resolve. He whispers to himself, a promise carved in stone, the cycle of being the weak pawn is over, and everything changes starting now. A sudden surge of energy washes over him as a notification burns into his vision. The long-awaited observation skill has finally unlocked. To sweeten the deal, a massive injection of 1 full year of magical power floods his veins, leaving him breathless. The taste of raw power is intoxicating, and Theo can't help but marvel at this newfound strength coursing through him. But his curiosity is piqued immediately. This observation ability is a mystery waiting to be unraveled. He finds himself pondering the mechanics of his new prize, wondering just how much of an advantage this will grant him. High above the training grounds, the air begins to ripple with an overwhelming, suffocating pressure. He looks up, feeling the gaze of a predator who has been watching his every move from the shadows. A man steps out into the light, his presence so dominant that it feels like the atmosphere itself is bowing to him. The realization hits the onlookers like a physical blow. It is the infamous demon dragon, Julius Ragnar, the terrifying commander of the white-armored dragon cavalry. Panic ripples through the crowd as they whisper in terror, why would one of the 9 dragons be here of all places? Julius ignores the spectators, his eyes locked onto the destruction left in the wake of the fight. He stalks toward Theo, his heavy footsteps shattering the stone flooring with each arrogant stride. He isn't here to congratulate a recruit. He is here to make a statement demanding to know why things couldn't have been done more quietly. Then, the tension breaks as a raucous, booming laughter erupts from the commander's throat. He is genuinely impressed, mocking the idea of the student surpassing the master, even if that master is now a corpse. Julius doesn't care about the morality of the kill, noting with a grin that the victim probably had it coming anyway. He turns his full intimidating attention toward Theo, his voice echoing with an offer that no sane person would refuse. He openly invites the boy to join the elite white-armored dragon cavalry, right here and now. The surrounding knights are stunned into silence, unable to process the absurdity of the imbecile of Ragnar being scouted by the legend himself. They watch, mouth agape, as the impossible offer hangs in the air, questioning how someone so notoriously weak could have caught such a predator's eye. The rumors about Theo's skill are clearly unfounded in their eyes, yet the evidence of his victory is impossible to ignore. Deep down, they cling to their pride, refusing to believe that Theo has any real potential. They rationalize that even if his swordsmanship is decent, his magic power must be a pathetic joke. Even the legendary demon dragon himself is taking a massive gamble, as nobody can truly gauge potential while a mana hall remains sealed. Theo stands there processing the gravity of the moment, wondering if his potential is truly as profound as the commander suspects. The weight of the name Theo Ragnar is changing, and the people around him can feel the shift in the wind. Gossip spreads like wildfire, and the news that he has effectively discarded his master reaches the upper echelons of the family. Within the walls of the Camellia Palace, Emil Ragnar stares out at the falling snow, reeling from the news of the death. She is cold, calculating, and already assessing how this death affects her carefully laid plan. She dismisses the life of the victim entirely, reminding her associates that the weak are expendable assets. The message is clear. The demon dragon's intervention has turned a simple situation into a diplomatic head. They had handpicked the master specifically for his incompetence, intending to keep Theo forever shackled in mediocrity. The sky dragon, Ed Troyvan, enters the room, his expression dark and contemplative as he surveys the board. The interference of Evelyn in these matters is the real catalyst, and it changes everything for the House of Ragnar. The pressure is mounting. If Theo starts to shine, the control they hold over the Rose Palace will begin to crumble. Emil wonders why they are so fixated on his progress, viewing his struggle as an inevitable failure. The plan remains unchanged. Keep him powerless, keep him beneath them, and avoid drawing the clan head's gaze. They remain convinced that their influence can suppress him, provided he doesn't do anything truly drastic. A figure steps into the light, cold and calculating, deciding it is time to personally intervene. He promises to play with the boy, intending to keep him in his place and remind him of the hierarchy. Back at the training ground, Evelyn offers a polite word of praise for the day's progress. Theo acknowledges her help, truly grateful for the guidance of a professional like her. She mentions the missed opportunity with the dragon cavalry, still confused as to why he would turn down such a prestigious path. Theo hides his inner thoughts well, even though he knows the regret of not joining Stings given his past life's aspirations. He knows the truth. Joining now would be a strategic error, as he has no intention of peaking before he's ready. The upcoming awakening ceremony is the true goal, and the rewards for the top performer are worth far more than an early enlistment. He isn't aiming for the short-term spotlight, he is building a foundation for something much greater. He plays the humble student, insisting he still has much to learn and isn't ready for the big stage yet. Evelyn notes that the commander won't be happy about the rejection, but she respects his focus. Theo wastes no time, immediately activating his new observation skill to analyze his teacher. Evelyn Nereville, a former deputy commander and a high-ranking swordsman, now stands revealed before him in stark detail. The system confirms her status. She actually admires his newfound humility, sensing a change in the energy he radiates. This skill is a game changer, and Theo smiles internally, already planning how to exploit this newfound information. The data confirms that for the first time in a long while, she is genuinely interested in his growth. He realizes that as long as he stays in the shadows, he can gather all the intelligence he needs to survive. Suddenly, his training is interrupted by the arrival of an unexpected visitor. A young man approaches him, carrying the solemn aura of someone from the Southern Inspection Post. He identifies himself as Sybil Drea, looking at Theo with an intensity that feels slightly unsettling. Sybil explains that he has come on official business to discuss something urgent with the young master. Theo finds the stranger's demeanor unnerving, his gut warning him to be cautious. Without a second thought, he triggers observation, once again desperate to know exactly who is standing before him. The system highlights the target, Sybil Drea, an apprentice swordsman from the inspection post. The status report is bizarre, revealing that Sybil has a strange, intense desire to spar with him. Theo stares back at him, confused by this sudden, aggressive request for combat. He wonders why a complete stranger would be so desperate to clash blades with someone of his reputation. Before he can even respond, the world seems to shift, and the system delivers a final daunting prompt. The final quest is clear. To truly move forward, he must shed the pathetic identity that has haunted him, the imbecile of Ragnar. Theo stands ready, his eyes locked onto a challenger who steps forward with a look of newfound respect. It is Sybil, a young man who once looked down on Theo, believing the rumors of him being the imbecile of Ragnar were true. But his perspective has shattered. He has watched Theo train tirelessly morning after morning with a dedication that put everyone else to shame. The sheer growth he witnessed firsthand turned his scorn into admiration. Sybil declares with genuine emotion that Theo has become his idol. He admits that he had almost given up on himself, feeling like a failure in the Southern Inspection Office, until Theo's sudden rise ignited a spark of hope within him. He bows his head, desperately pleading for the chance to cross blades with the man who changed his world. Theo remains cautious, his mind trained by a harsh past to always suspect ulterior motives. Yet, looking into the boy's eyes, he realizes the sincerity is real. Sybil Drea, the apprentice swordsman, stands revealed, his status as one who deeply respects Theo now cemented. This sudden shift in public perception is exactly what Theo needed after taking down Rendon. With Lord Julius's attention now fixed on him, Theo realizes that the tide is turning. He expected those crippled by their own inferiority complexes to swarm him in a desperate attempt to test his strength. And in a way, he needs them. If he is to become the head of the Ragnar clan, he must cultivate his own loyal followers. Every interaction, every duel is just another step in his ultimate goal. This isn't just a spar, it is the final piece of his tutorial. He is finally on the verge of shedding the humiliating title that has haunted him his entire life. This new life offers a fresh start, and he is determined to abandon his past failures forever. The air grows heavy with anticipation as they prepare to exchange blows. Theo offers his opponent a nod, inviting him to show his true potential. Sybil introduces himself with pride, a disciple of the Rose Palace and an apprentice from the Southern Inspection Office. He boasts of his heritage, claiming the swordsmanship of the Kure clan and a deadly proficiency with the quicksword. With a firm resolve, they decide to engage in a proper spar. Despite his past reputation as an idiot, Sybil remains confident in his legendary speed. He knows that even if others doubt him, his quickness is the real deal. Theo braces himself, ready to witness what this idiot can really do. The clash begins, and Theo is surprised by the intensity of the assault. In his previous life, he would have struggled to block even a few of these strikes. But now, with his enhanced senses and tactical mind, the battle feels almost effortless. Sybil is stunned, realizing that his supposed idol is far stronger than he could have ever imagined. The spar reaches its climax as Theo effortlessly dismantles his opponent's technique. Sybil hits the ground, breathless and defeated, acknowledging the absolute gap in their skill. He looks up at Theo with nothing but awe, fully accepting his loss. Theo stands over him, satisfied with the results of the fight. He takes a moment to breathe, feeling the weight of his progress. An idea strikes him. He wonders if he can apply his observation skill to himself. He activates his power, and the world shimmers as a status window manifests before his eyes. The system confirms it. He can now track his own statistics with numerical precision. Theo is now officially listed as Theo Ragnar, the former imbecile now possessing a hidden, complex set of talents. He notes his strength, his dexterity, and his vitality, but one number stops him cold. His luck is -49. He realizes that these abilities are categorized under his unique talent tree. If he completes these quests, he could potentially unlock even more powerful capabilities. The realization brings a smirk to his face. He finally has a map for his own growth. He examines his stats again, focusing on that abysmal luck stat. His magic power is through the roof, a gift from his past life and the residual energy of the dragon heart. But that negative luck, it feels like a curse that has followed him from his previous existence. He questions if his tragic end in his past life was entirely due to this invisible, crushing misfortune. He resolves to find a way to break this cycle and improve his luck, no matter the cost. Stepping back into the arena, he prepares for the next challenge. The crowd watches in stunned silence, whispering about how even a mid-rank swordsman like Rendon was crushed by this sport. The reaction is immediate. Some are filled with burning envy, while others cannot help but admire his meteoric rise. The reputation of the Ragnar clan is built on the rule of the strong, and Theo is proving he belongs at the top. The whispers grow louder as more challengers step forward, desperate to test the truth of the rumor. A young man steps out, clearly determined to see if he could have blocked Theo's blade. He challenges Theo with a hungry look in his eyes, eager for the experience. This is Eod Nalan, a low-rank swordsman with a burning passion for the blade. Theo welcomes the challenge, inviting the next opponent to move forward. Eod steps into the arena, his heart racing with the honor of the duel. He declares that he is the third son of Viscount Nalan, trained in the prestigious double ascension style. They salute each other, promising to give their all in this fight. The blades collide, creating a shower of sparks that illuminates the arena. Theo finds his rhythm, feeling his basic swordsmanship proficiency climbing with every successful parry. The intensity is unrelenting as EOD pushes himself to the limit. Theo remains calm, watching every movement with cold, calculated precision. The pressure on Eod is immense as he realizes he is completely outclassed. The fight ends in a flash, with Theo once again emerging as the clear victor. Eod collapses, breathless, acknowledging his defeat. Theo watches a new notification scroll by. His approval rating is climbing, and with it, his luck stat begins to tick upward. He wonders if his reputation is directly linked to the system's reward. He realizes he needs to keep fighting, to keep proving himself to everyone gathered here. The system continues to chime. Bennett Ramiro has granted his approval. Eric Moran follows, his respect for Theo now etched into the record. Manfred Nonbert bows to the victor, adding to Theo's growing influence. Manuel Noir joins the growing list of those who have seen the truth of Theo's strength. Viro Perenzi and Daniel Riemann offer their recognition as well. Each victory, each approval, slowly nudges his luck stat higher. He looks at the tutorial quest interface, frustrated that his progress has only moved by 1%. He realizes that simply defeating those who already respect him won't be enough. To truly shatter the title of imbecile, he needs to target stronger foes who actively look down on him. He searches for a different kind of event, something that will force the world to take him seriously. A warrior approaches, noticing the sweat on Theo's brow and asking if he is holding up. Theo shakes it off. He will rest when he is finished, not a moment before. Suddenly, a new, imposing figure enters the arena. It is Remington Narcio, one of the legendary Four Hounds of the North. The crowd parts in awe. He is the deputy clan head, a man known for his terrifying skill. Alongside him is Axion Ragnar, another of the four strongest youths in their generation. Remington steps forward, his presence commanding the entire space. He has come specifically to judge the swordsmanship of the young master before the big ceremony. Theo feels a rush of adrenaline. He is finally facing someone he has genuinely respected. He knows that this is the moment that could define everything. He steels his nerves, ready to fight with everything he has, wondering if he has finally reached the level required to challenge a master. The battle begins, and the system pings. The quest is only just begun. The air crackled with the sheer force of their collision, leaving everyone breathless. Young Master Theo stood his ground, his eyes locked onto his opponent with an intensity that burned. Even as blades shattered around them, the exchange was far from over. The clash rang out with a deafening finality, stopping the world in its tracks. Opponents and onlookers alike watched in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the sight before them. The realization that the duel was over hit them all like a physical blow. The crushing defeat of someone as prominent as Theo was something none of them could believe. But in this harsh reality, they knew there was no room for denial. The verdict was clear. The strength displayed was simply beyond what anyone expected of the young master. They had to accept that the gap between him and the legendary Four Hounds was insurmountable. Yet, even in his defeat, Theo showed a fighting spirit that left his enemies momentarily speechless. He didn't make excuses, acknowledging the loss of his sword as the defining moment of the bout. Gracefully, he extended his thanks for the duel, keeping his head held high. He looked forward, already picturing a rematch where he wouldn't make the same mistakes. His opponent accepted the sentiment, showing a rare moment of mutual respect. The news rippled through the crowd. The young master was truly changing. He had actually managed to earn the silent acknowledgement of one of the elite Four Hounds. It was clear to everyone watching that this was no longer the same boy they had once dismissed. Deep within his mind, a notification chimed, a reminder that his journey to escape the humiliating label of an imbecile was still underway. Progress was being made, even if it was slower than he liked. He knew that by hunting down secret manuals and pushing his limits, he was already leagues ahead of his pathetic past life. Yet, the moment their blades had clashed, he felt the stinging truth of his own limitation. He was still lacking, and he knew it. Still, he had gained something valuable from this failed duel, and that was enough for now. Not only had his luck improved, but his reputation was finally beginning to mend. Though the quest bar barely moved, he refused to be discouraged. He was already calculating, looking for the next path toward his ultimate goal. He needed a bigger stage, a place where he could force the world to finally grant him the approval he sought. Just then, a new opportunity arrived in the form of an unexpected invitation. It wasn't a challenge, but a calculated move to draw him into a web of high society politics. The Scaled Dragon Society, a group only for the most elite, a place he was never meant to reach. He realized then that this wasn't just a party, it was an invitation into the lion's den. He was being asked to step directly into the world of the powerful. He feigned uncertainty, playing the part of the modest, unsuspecting target perfectly. He knew exactly how famous their circle was, and he let them believe they were doing him a favor. They played it off as a simple social gathering, a way to pass the time before the awakening ceremony. He could see the cracks in their act, the hidden motives lurking beneath their polite smiles. He kept his true intentions hidden, masking his hunger for growth with a facade of compliance. He knew full well that this society was a playground for Axion, his greatest obstacle. It was filled with people who looked down on him, exactly the kind of environment he needed to sharpen his edge. This was the perfect hunting ground to gather intelligence on Axion and the Camellia Palace. He decided to play along, masking his burning ambition behind a mask of indifference. "I see no reason to refuse," he said, accepting their invitation with a calm smile. He took the slip of paper, officially stepping into the belly of the beast. The quest system ticked forward again, a small but steady step toward his liberation. They thought they were bringing him into the fold, but they had no idea they were inviting their own downfall. They offered him their help with questions, unaware that he was already several moves ahead of them. The trap was set, and the date for the reckoning was already fixed. The real work would begin in 2 weeks, and he would be ready. He returned to the Rose Palace, his mind already spinning with new strategies. His mother had been waiting for him, worried, but ready to offer her support in the only way she knew how. She had news of her own, and seeing him there, she didn't waste a moment. She was already preparing, treating his entry into the society as a matter of life and death. She spoke of the dangerous figures he would face: Axion, the cunning offspring of a rival, and the brilliant minds like Remington. They were sharks, and she knew her son was about to swim into their ocean. She warned him that they were under the watchful eye of the council. Even the smallest mistake would be scrutinized. She had absolute faith in his manners, but she knew that surviving high society required more than just etiquette. It required a presence that demanded respect, and that was where she stepped in. She had been an actress once, and she knew the power of a curated image. She took it upon herself to mold him into someone who could stand tall amongst the elite. She told him that his success would be her greatest joy, a final act of devotion to her son. He knew the weight of her love, and the pain she carried for being a commoner concubine in a cold, unforgiving clan. She had always felt guilty for the label she had given him, blaming herself for his supposed lack of standing. He looked at her and felt the sharp sting of regret, knowing it was never her fault. The Ragnar clan was cold and brutal, a place where weakness was a death sentence. He could only imagine how much she had suffered, terrified of what the future held for her son. He leaned into her, letting her help him, finally giving her the peace of mind she so desperately needed. He promised her that there was no need to worry, he would survive and thrive. 2 weeks passed in a blur of intense preparation and careful planning. The night of the banquet finally arrived, the culmination of all his hard work. He looked different, poised and confident, a far cry from the person he used to be. His training was evident, his frame was leaner, stronger, and more refined. Even the people around him could sense the shift in his aura. He joked that even his training partners were starting to look at him with a different kind of respect. He had spent those 2 weeks training until he was exhausted, pushing past every limit. Those grueling days had forged him into a weapon, and he felt closer than ever to his goal. He could feel the weight of expectation, but it didn't bother him. He was ready to put on a show. The journey to the banquet was the final step of his transformation. He knew the game was rigged, but he had already decided to flip the board. Axion was waiting, ready to play with his new toy, but he had no idea that the toy had already begun to sharpen its blade. Theo arrives at the Camellia Palace, the site where the shadows of his past first began to take shape. He remembers how these very halls were responsible for tearing his life apart, consuming his mother and the entirety of the Rose Palace. Word had already spread that Axion would be waiting to meet him, a trap laid out in plain sight. Theo knows exactly why he was invited here. It was to keep the supposed imbecile of the Ragnar clan in his place. But Axion has no idea that the man walking toward him is no longer the target he once manipulated. Theo has a calculated plan, and he is ready to show everyone just who they are trying to trample. His focus suddenly shifts, caught by a strange blue light pulsing within the palace. He wonders if a secret quest is hidden somewhere deep within these walls. Before he can process it, a sudden, violent explosion tears through the air. Theo barely reacts, his body moving with a speed and instinct that he never possessed in his previous life. He realizes he would have been killed instantly had he been the same person he was before. He had initially suspected Remington was involved in this petty trap, but that clearly isn't the case. Remington is just as stunned by the unexpected chaos as everyone else. It turns out this wasn't an assassination attempt, but a humiliating prank involving Flower. The culprits reveal themselves, mocking him with a cruel, smug sense of entitlement. Axion steps forward, wearing a grin that doesn't reach his cold, predatory eyes. He treats the entire ordeal like a friendly greeting between brothers, hiding his malice behind a facade of normalcy. Theo hides his disgust, playing along with the charade for now. He keeps his tone light, thanking Axion for the invite and acting the part of the submissive fool. Inside, however, Theo is sharpening his resolve. He knows he has to play the game to survive. The other nobles watching from the sidelines are confused, wondering why Axion would bother inviting a lowly target. To them, Theo is just a toy, a plaything for the powerful to toss around. Remington tries to apologize, clearly embarrassed by the behavior of his peers, but Theo waves it off. He is actually grateful for their arrogance. The more they underestimate him now, the harder they will fall later. Theo doesn't care about the insults. He is focused on the blue light he spotted earlier. He knows the quest he needs is nearby, though he hasn't found the right way to approach it yet. Axion walks toward him, his smile mocking and patronizing. He tells Theo to calm down, urging him to stick to the plan as if he were a pet on a leash. Theo answers with perfect obedience, keeping his head down. Axion apologizes for the earlier outburst, pretending it was just a bit of fun that went too far. Theo acts surprised, questioning why an apology is even necessary. He plays the confused, naive victim, allowing Axion to believe his manipulation is working. Axion lets out a laugh, genuinely amused by how easily he thinks he can control Theo. He laughs at the sight of Theo, completely unaware that he is being played by a man who knows his every move. Theo smiles back, keeping his true intentions locked tightly away. The crowd whispers, enjoying the show and mocking the imbecile who can't even stand up for himself. They sneer at his lack of noble roots, calling him nothing more than a bastard with no backbone. To them, the gap between a true noble of the Troyvan clan and a man of his standing is insurmountable. The guests continue to gossip, wondering why Remington is wasting his time with such a social pariah. A warning ripple goes through the room as someone whispers that even Remington shares a similar shameful background. The tension rises, but the crowd quickly stifles the talk, knowing some topics are strictly forbidden here. Theo stands silently, watching the theater of fools play out around him. He was willing to be patient, to sit and observe for a little longer, but he realizes now that the time for games has passed. If they want to play, he will show them how a real greeting is done. He moves with terrifying intent, his hand closing around a bottle. In a heartbeat, he smashes the glass against the arrogant noble standing before him. The sound of the impact echoes through the silent hall, followed by a spray of wine and blood. The noble falls, clutching his face in agony as the room erupts in shock. Theo stands tall, the air around him shifting from submission to cold, lethal dominance. The room plunges into chaos as everyone freezes, unable to comprehend that the imbecile just fought back. Theo continues his assault, showing no mercy to those who dared to look down on him. He kicks his opponent, sending them flying with a power that defies their expectation. He looks down at the bleeding man, mocking the very idea that he would ever take such disrespect sitting down. A glowing interface flickers to life in his vision, recording his progress as his status begins to change. The others around him tremble, finally realizing that their perception of him was entirely wrong. Theo moves with a chilling, calculated grace, his eyes locking onto the next target. He wonders aloud if anyone else in this room wants to offer him a greeting. As the system notifications climb, he moves deeper into the dance of violence. He finishes his brutal business, casting his gaze around the room, daring anyone to challenge his authority. With the first part of his greeting concluded, he starts to think about making his exit. He moves with purpose, stepping toward the next obstacle in his path. He plants his feet firmly, the atmosphere heavy with the threat of what he is about to do next. He reaches down, his movements sharp and decisive. He continues his display of dominance, leaving no room for doubt about who holds the power now. The onlookers scramble back, terrified by the sudden shift in reality. Theo prepares for the next phase, his eyes burning with the memory of the pain he has endured. He turns his attention toward a new arrival, his expression unreadable. The crowd realizes this is Ian Hanavi, a representative of the powerful Snow Clan. His presence confirms why Theo came to the Scaled Dragon Society in the first place, to face the very people who support his enemies. The Hanavi clan is one of the pillars supporting Ragnar, making them a primary target. The room falls deathly silent as the realization hits. These people are no longer hunters but prey. They had watched from the sidelines, mocking the man they thought was weak, but now the dynamic has flipped. Theo stares them down, ready to break them just as they had tried to break him. He asks them, with a voice that freezes the room, if they are truly prepared to stand by their insult. He questions if the dogs of the Ragnar banner clans are actually brave enough to demand his death. He refuses to be silenced, his resolve hardening into a weapon. Every drop of blood spilled is a promise kept, a debt to be collected in full. He stands as a testament to his own survival, no longer a pawn. He draws his weapon, the light catching the steel as he prepares for the final confrontation. His determination is absolute, forged in the fires of a life he refused to leave behind. He stares into the eyes of his enemies, showing them the face of the man they should have feared from the start. He has reached his breaking point, and now he will ensure they reach theirs. There is no turning back. The path to his vengeance is clear. He will no longer tolerate the disrespect of those who sought to destroy him. Two warriors stand ready, blades drawn, but the crushing aura emanating from their opponent leaves them visibly shaken. They exchange frantic glances, their composure crumbling as the reality of the situation sets in. Ragnar's dark, commanding presence intensifies, forcing them to question if this is truly the same foolish man they once despised. The weight of the atmosphere is suffocating, pushing them to the brink of panic. They struggle to reconcile the pathetic memories of the past with the terrifying powerhouse standing before them now. The legacy of Ragnar, Lord of the North and ruler of the 6 Snow Clans, hangs over them like a death sentence. The weight of his bloodline is undeniable, a force that dictates the fate of all who dare to oppose him. To raise a hand against such lineage is a crime so grave it warrants the absolute annihilation of an entire clan. For years they had foolishly underestimated him, convinced that the label of an imbecile was all he would ever be. But that delusion has shattered, and they realize with sickening clarity that the time for underestimating him is long past. Terror grips them, and they realize the only option left is to beg for forgiveness. Kill them, the command echoes final and cold. Without hesitation, the blades flash, leaving no room for mercy or negotiation. It is a swift, brutal display of power that leaves no doubt about the victor. The battle ends almost before it begins, painting the floor in a grim reminder of the cost of their arrogance. A single blade is held with lethal precision, dripping with the consequences of defying the Lord. One after another, the attackers fall, realizing too late that they never stood a chance. The silence that follows is heavy, broken only by the cold resolve of the victor standing amidst the carnage. He sheathes his weapon, the display of skill signaling the end of the conflict. Stepping over the defeated, he moves with an elegance that mocks those who once looked down on him. A notification blazes to life, signaling that the tutorial quest is nearing its end. His expression remains unreadable, focused solely on the path ahead. A familiar face appears, shock etched clearly across her features at the scene before her. They exchange a look, the tension of the battlefield momentarily replaced by a complex, silent understanding. With a confident smirk, he prepares to flip the script, ready to navigate the chaos he has created. The aftermath of the violence is stark, a testament to his overwhelming strength. He continues to push forward, methodical and unrelenting in his progression. With a sharp movement, he continues to dominate, leaving his opponents with no room to breathe. He stands tall, a man who has finally stepped out from the shadows of his past. The challenge remains, but he is clearly in control of his own destiny now. The scene shifts to a quiet meeting, where a seasoned veteran pours a drink, his eyes filled with calculated observation. He poses a challenging question, testing the resolve of his companion. The past is brought up, a reminder of a promise once made regarding the taking of disciples. Their conversation is heavy with implications, touching on the weight of long-held burdens. He presses for an answer, eager to see if his companion has finally broken his self-imposed retirement. The veteran takes a long, contemplative sip, the taste of the drink mirroring the bitterness of his thoughts. He admits with a weary sigh that he has been finding joy in the simple act of causing his peer group. The question hangs in the air once more. What is his final decision? The veteran speaks with the weight of experience, noting that his new student has completely shattered all expectations. His talent and attitude are unmatched, a rare combination that makes him the finest pupil he has ever trained. A mention of ActionToon brings a flicker of interest, forcing a comparison between the two. But the veteran stands by his assessment, claiming the new student's potential is nothing short of legendary. These are not hollow words, they are the honest observations of a master who has seen it all. He taunts the listener, suggesting that if they had his keen eye, they would see the truth as clearly as he does. The question of whether the boy has been hiding his true power all along begins to circulate. It seems impossible for anyone to undergo such a radical transformation overnight. Yet the sudden display of raw ability is undeniably real, and it is catching everyone by surprise. The veteran muses on the nature of ambition, noting how haste often leads to a disastrous fall. It's as if the boy is running from something, or perhaps running toward a destiny that is rapidly unfolding. The veteran expresses his genuine concern, worried about the boy's next major appearance in high society. A calm response suggests that if the concern is truly that deep, perhaps he should see for himself. The suggestion is met with hesitation, a clear sign of the complex internal conflict at play. He is told to go and watch, to see that what is happening is far more complex than simple anxiety. A warning is issued, something is about to happen, something that will change everything. He contemplates the behavior of those who rise too quickly, like wolf cubs struggling for a place in the pack. He is urged to use this opportunity to bring a promising prospect into the fold of the elite. He is challenged on his retirement, reminded that one's legacy doesn't vanish just because they can no longer do what they once did. He is pushed to take responsibility, to step back into the fray and oversee the one he introduced. The offer is made to both of them, a call to duty that they cannot easily ignore. A final, sharp motion seals the deal, signaling a new chapter in their alliance. He acknowledges the quality of the drink, a small comfort in a world that is becoming increasingly complicated. The realization hits home, this boy is far from ordinary, and the game has only just begun. He senses a presence, a connection that runs deeper than mere observation. He understands the power he possesses, a sixth sense that allows him to perceive the energy of others. The pieces are falling into place, and the stage is finally set for his grand design. The law is absolute, and in this world, immediate execution is a very real possibility. He is merciful only in the sense that he chooses to leave them alive, though forever chained. A single arm is the price they pay for their insolence, a lesson they will carry for the rest of their lives. He stands before them, his presence alone enough to command absolute silence. The tutorial quest reaches its climax, the progress bar inching toward its inevitable completion. One by one, the scions of noble houses fall before him, their status offering them no protection. The sword dances, and with every strike, his title as an imbecile is stripped away. He is a reaper in their midst, and they are nothing more than obstacles in his path. Their pleas for mercy fall on deaf ears, as he is here to send a message. He stands amidst the ruins of their pride, a dark energy surrounding him like a shroud. He dismisses their fear as mere greetings, a casual display of the terror he intends to unleash. The struggle is intense, a desperate fight for survival against a force that cannot be reasoned with. With a blinding flash, he demonstrates the sheer gap in their abilities. He stands over his fallen foe, the hierarchy of power permanently rewritten. He meets her eyes, a calm acknowledgement of the dance they have both performed. The victory is absolute, and the weight of the past is finally cast aside. They walk away from the carnage, leaving the broken behind to reflect on their own hubris. Her loyalty is noted, a quiet admission that she played her part in the devastation perfectly. He is satisfied with the results, knowing that their reputation as warriors is shattered beyond repair. They discuss the fallen, concluding that while they might be saved, their future as swordsmen is effectively dead. He checks on his master, a rare moment of genuine connection amidst the cold calculation. They celebrate, the exhaustion of the battle replaced by the grim satisfaction of a job well done. The transformation is complete. The imbecile of the palace is nothing more than a memory. His desire to crush everything beneath his feet is a fire that will not be easily extinguished. The quest is finally complete, the system confirming his success in a world that once mocked him. The tutorial is over, but for him, this is merely the beginning of his true revenge. The atmosphere within the Camellia Palace is thick with suffocating tension as the lady erupts in fury over recent failures. She paces, her frustration boiling over, unable to accept that they have handed their enemy the perfect excuse to act. To her, it's not just a setback, it's an insult that those under her banner allowed themselves to be humiliated and crippled. She scolds her subordinates, warning that their reckless behavior has paved the way for the young master they despise to run wild. The weight of her ambition is clear. She is terrified that their long-term plans to seize control are unraveling because someone let their guard down. A subordinate tries to offer a defense, but she silences him immediately, refusing to entertain excuses for such a monumental blunder. She demands they stop acting like fools, pinning the blame for the near ruination of their grand scheme on their desire for trivial pleasures. With a cold, dismissive command, she orders them to leave, intent on making them suffer for their incompetence. As they retreat, she mutters to herself, disgusted by the impulse that led to this disaster, wondering who exactly that brat takes after. A calm, calculated voice cuts through her anger, noting with a dark smile that the boy mirrors her own youth all too well. She bristles at the remark, viewing it as a mockery of the situation rather than a genuine observation. But he remains unfazed, urging her to cast aside her rage, convinced that the current incident might actually work in their favor. Caught off guard by his confidence, she demands to know how he could possibly see a silver lining in such a mess. He explains that because the Rose Palace has long been tied to the clan head's harem, they've never been able to touch it. Even though it was seen as a den for riffraff, it always enjoyed the protection of the clan head's shadow, making it untouchable until now. The key has always been justification, and finally, the stars have aligned to give them exactly what they need. The chaos Theo sparked at the Scaled Dragon Society meeting wasn't a failure, it was the opening they've been waiting for. As Theo slowly establishes himself as the face of the Rose Palace, he is unwittingly painting a target on his own back. By framing the incident through the lens of justice, they now have the perfect excuse to launch a legal assault. Her deep-seated fear of Theo's rising power finally starts to dissipate, replaced by the cold logic of an encroaching trap. She realizes that if the clan head's attention shifts toward the Rose Palace, she can use that proximity to ruin them. Using the official weight of the Camellia Palace, they will wipe the floor with their enemies under the guise of legal protocol. The Rose Palace will have no choice but to crumble, handing the victory to the Troivans without a single sword needing to be drawn. A malicious grin spreads across her face as she asks how quickly they can set the gears of this scheme into motion. The preparations are already complete, and the final strike is set for tomorrow morning, ready to catch their target off guard. They promise her she will wake up to the sound of a total crushing victory against those they despise. She is encouraged to cast aside her worries, indulge in a warm bath, and sleep soundly for one. To ensure her comfort, A rare aromatic candle from the volcanic regions has been prepared, a small luxury for the triumph to come. She smiles, genuinely impressed by the thoroughness of his planning, calling him the best brother she could ask for. The title card flashes, marking the calm before the storm as the schemes of the powerful begin to tighten around their prey. Meanwhile, a different conversation unfolds, one filled with genuine shock and unexpected gratitude. Remington stands in disbelief, his voice trembling as he admits he never realized how much Theo truly cared for him. Theo looks back with a puzzled expression, genuinely confused by the intensity of Remington's reaction to the recent events. Remington clarifies that he's talking about the standoff at the Scaled Dragon Society meeting. He can't help but wonder if Theo is acting differently because of the drink he's holding, or if something else has changed. Remington recounts how Theo, despite years of being looked down upon, stepped up the moment a friend was insulted. He reflects on his own helplessness, feeling small compared to the man who stood tall when it mattered most. The more Remington watches him, the more he realizes he never truly understood the depth of the man standing before him. He recalls the years Theo endured the labels of illegitimate and untalented, yet somehow he forged himself into a man of steel. That strength, combined with his unwavering courage to draw his blade without a second thought, has left Remington profoundly affected. All that risk, all that danger, it was all done for him. The system tracks Remington's status, noting a deep, stirring devotion rooted in the belief that Theo is his true guardian. Theo stares at the notification, realizing that a massive misunderstanding is currently cementing his reputation. His mind races, trying to figure out how to handle the sudden intense loyalty of the people around him. He knows his clan ordered him to build ties with Axion, but he has much bigger plans in mind. Remington makes his decision, pledging his future and his life to follow Theo wherever he goes. Theo tries to intervene, sensing that the situation is spiraling into something he didn't intend, but it's already too late. Remington smiles, content in his misunderstanding, believing that Theo is simply too humble to admit his kindness. He muses that perhaps everyone is finally beginning to see the true value in following a leader like Theo. Theo sighs, knowing he isn't special, but he can't deny the strange power behind the messages appearing in his mind. He gazes at the interface, realizing that his rise to power might not be entirely his own doing. His status window glows, displaying his stats and the mysterious locked talents that hint at a deeper potential. He questions the origin of this system, wondering if it's a fragment of the regrets he carried in his past life. But the sheer detail of the interface suggests this is something far more tangible and deliberate than just a hallucination. A flicker of familiarity crosses his eyes, a sense of déjà vu that he can't quite place, but he pushes it aside. Whatever the source, the system is actively helping him climb, and that is all that matters for now. He notes that his level increased the moment the Scaled Dragon Society incident concluded, confirming the path forward. With his stats now clear, including his unusual luck and magic power, the potential for growth is limitless. He realizes that every level up grants him the freedom to distribute points and carve out his own destiny. The future he is building is brighter than anything he could have imagined, yet it carries the weight of a rising storm. He knows the Camellia Palace won't take this sitting down, and he must prepare for their inevitable retaliation. Turning his attention back to Remington, he decides to secure his future by making a request. Remington, now fully committed, responds with unwavering enthusiasm, ready to serve his young master's every need. He finds humor in the moment, noting that Theo addressed him with such a friendly, familiar nickname. The mention of the name triggers a warmth in Remington, further deepening his bond with the man he now follows. Theo knows the war for the throne is rapidly approaching, and the conflict between him and the other factions will soon turn deadly. He holds a small object, his mind already calculating the steps needed to survive the upcoming trial. He asks Remington for his help, laying the foundation for what he knows will be a crucial alliance. He remembers the future, a time when Remington leads the Narcio clan and stands as a formidable check against the Ragnars. Theo realizes he has the chance to change that future, to turn a potential rival into an ironclad ally. He entrusts Remington with the task, knowing that this small act of faith will pay massive dividends when the fighting starts. Remington is moved to his core, pledging his sword and his clan's loyalty to the man who treats him with such respect. He promises that no matter what is asked of him, he will stand by Theo through the fire. Theo hides a smirk, knowing that the trap he's setting is far more effective than the one being prepared against him. He watches Remington leave, satisfied that his influence in the coming war is now significantly stronger. The atmosphere in the tavern shifts instantly when the heavy doors swing open, signaling an uninvited arrival. An armored figure enters with a heavy, commanding gait that demands immediate submission. The tension in the room spikes as the Knights of the Law stand before them, their presence freezing the air. The leader brandishes a formal document, the seal glistening under the tavern lights, signaling a grim purpose. Theo reads the charges: threat, assault, and intimidation, delivered with a cold, administrative finality. The accusation hits the room like a shockwave, leaving those around him in a state of utter confusion and disbelief. Theo remains remarkably calm, observing the document and noting that the ink is still wet, proving just how desperate his enemies are. They didn't even wait for the dust to settle before rushing this warrant through the courts, exposing their own impatience. He extends his wrists, the heavy shackles clicking into place, but as he turns to leave, his expression holds a dangerous, knowing calm. The imposing architecture of the Rose Palace looms overhead, its silent walls watching over a fate that hangs in the balance. Anxiety ripples through the halls as the news spreads, leaving those who care for Theo reeling in disbelief. They scramble to understand the gravity of the situation, realizing that this is far more than a simple misunderstanding. The weight of the accusation settles in, a chilling reminder that their world is shifting beneath their feet. The charge of inciting a rebellion carries the scent of execution, and the dread of that reality begins to take hold. Inside the quiet confines of the chamber, a cold, hard truth is finally spoken aloud. They know the trial is not just a formality, it is a weapon intended to break him. For someone like Theo, the destruction of the Scaled Dragon Society was a necessary move, but now it has become the rope around his neck. Deep down, they cling to the hope that his spirit remains unbroken, trusting in the resilience that has defined his life thus far. With a heavy heart and a silent prayer, they can only watch as he walks into the unknown, hoping for his safe return. The path toward the tribunal is familiar yet heavy with the weight of the past. He understands that his victory over the Scaled Dragon Society has painted a target on his back, ensuring that imprisonment is just the beginning. A trial is inevitable, a stage set by his enemies to dismantle everything he has built. Summoning the successor of Ragnar to the tribunal is a blatant power play, an attempt to strip him of his legitimacy and crush his future. His foes are confident that this is the end of the line, but they fail to realize that this is exactly the opportunity he has been waiting for. The heavy wheels of the carriage grind against the stone, signaling the start of his final act. He remains calm, his mind already calculating the outcome of the confrontation he is about to face. The carriage draws to a halt, the destination finally reached. He steps out, the cold eyes of the tribunal guards fixed upon him as he is formally escorted into the belly of the beast. The massive doors swing open, revealing a blinding light that swallows him whole. He stands on the threshold, ready to face the judgment of those who believe they can command his fate. There is a predatory glint in his eye, for he knows that if he is to spring his trap, it must be on a stage this significant. The air in the chamber is thick with hostility, yet he stands tall, surveying the powerful figures gathered to witness his downfall. He finds himself surrounded by the elite, the legendary guardians of the Ragnar name. The demon dragon Julius Ragnar sits with the weight of his reputation while the others stare down with cold, calculating precision. He recognizes them all, the architects of the very system that has sought to suppress him at every turn. If he were the man he was in his past life, the sheer pressure of this gathering would have left him breathless and broken. But he is not that man anymore, and the intimidation that once worked no longer has a hold on his soul. The head counselor looms over the assembly, his presence demanding absolute submission. The formal exchange is brief, masking the deep-seated disdain the elder feels toward a youth he considers a stain on the family bloodline. The tension is palpable. The elder does not bother to hide his contempt for the illegitimate child standing before him. He has no patience for pleasantries, eager to move straight to the sentencing. The charges are laid out, listing the various factions and guilds that have been driven to the brink because of his reckless intervention. He is accused of destroying the clan's stability, and the elder demands to know if a mere bastard can possibly pay for such colossal damage. Theo does not retreat. Instead, he bows his head, acknowledging the accusation with a chilling, unexpected candor. He admits to his carelessness, but his words carry a sharper edge than the elder anticipates. He reflects on the cost of the rebellion, suggesting that he should have been far more ruthless when he had the chance. The hall falls into a stunned silence as he speaks, his tone devoid of fear. He challenges the very foundation of their authority, pointing out that true power requires more than just tyranny to survive. His words are a direct strike at the heart of the elder's outdated worldview. The Lady of the Plum Blossom Palace watches him with a piercing gaze, clearly unimpressed by his audacity. The atmosphere shifts, a flicker of doubt dancing in the eyes of those who expected a groveling confession. The Sword Dragon, the most formidable fighter in the north, considers his words, finding the logic in his defiance. She seems unswayed by the hostility around him, and for a moment, he senses a bridge that might not be burned. He knows the stakes, aware that a single wrong move could result in his permanent removal from the chessboard. The elder seethes with rage, his composure finally beginning to crack under the weight of Theo's blatant refusal to be intimidated. He demands that Theo acknowledge the justice of his punishment, desperate to maintain the illusion of control. Theo plays the part, bowing slightly as he asks what the council deems appropriate for his crime. The verdict is delivered, 3 months of probation, effectively benching him during the critical upcoming event. The injustice is clear, this is a calculated move to prevent his rise, and he knows it. But the council has underestimated him, and he accepts their terms, keeping his true intentions hidden behind a mask of humility. The elder continues, laying out the secondary consequences involving the victims of the previous conflict. He suggests that Theo's influence has been contained, believing he has finally silenced a growing threat. The rival factions within the court exchange satisfied glances, convinced that their path to power is now unobstructed. They toast to their perceived victory, confident that the delay of the ceremony will leave the Rose Palace in ruins. They are certain that he has been neutralized, leaving him no room to maneuver. They scheme in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike the final blow against him. He stands amidst the wolves, watching them celebrate their ignorance. They think they have won, but they have no idea that they are merely moving the pieces according to his design. The trap is set, and every word they spoke has only served to justify his next move. The irony is not lost on him. They believe they are punishing him, when in reality they are handing him the keys to the kingdom. He remains focused, his resolve hardening as he prepares to shatter their expectations. The elder erupts, unable to fathom the audacity of a youth who refuses to beg for mercy. He is a man accustomed to blind obedience, and Theo's calm demeanor feels like a personal insult. The others watch in disbelief as Theo maintains his composure, his presence overshadowing those who judge him. He is ready to pivot, fully prepared to turn their own judgment against them. His defiance is a spark in the dark, signaling that the true battle for the succession has only just begun. He knows that in the end, history is written by the victors, and he has no intention of being the loser in this game. He refuses to accept their slap on the wrist, instead envisioning the reward he believes he has earned. The system responds, the message clear, the main scenario has officially begun. A digital interface flickers to life, marking the beginning of a quest that will force the truth into the light. He gazes upon the challenge, fully aware that this path will lead him through the deepest secrets of this world. He welcomes the struggle, knowing that the outcome will change the course of Ragnar's future forever. The goal is clear, and he steps forward, leaving the past behind him. He has finally identified the hidden branch, a location that has remained obscured until this very moment. The realization hits them like a physical blow, their secret stronghold compromised. The strategy they had relied upon is now in shambles, his predictions proven right once again. The flames rise, consuming the remnants of their failed protection and their false sense of security. With the Camellia Palace's plans burned to ash, he stands as the architect of his own destiny, ready to claim what is rightfully his. The tension in the grand hall is palpable as the fate of the trial hangs by a thread. Theo stands his ground, his composure unshaken by the weight of the accusations raining down upon him. The opposition pushes for a war, clearly underestimating the resolve of the young man standing before them. With eyes cold as stone, he dismisses their arrogance, knowing full well that such a conflict would be absolute madness. The silence stretches as he prepares to shoulder the entire burden of this confrontation himself. He knows the brutal reality of their situation. There is a mountain of a power gap between the sides. In a world dictated by the sword, he understands that a proxy battle is the only logical path forward. War is far too destructive for this dispute, especially when one side holds all the cards. The proposal is clear, a one-on-one duel to decide the winner, shielding the rest from the fallout of an all-out war. With these stakes set, the stage is perfectly primed for a proxy confrontation. The air grows heavy with anticipation as everyone realizes Theo has been cornered into a position where he is expected to fall. Calculations are being made in the shadows, with his enemies all but guaranteeing his defeat. Yet, even with the odds stacked against him, a lingering question remains. Does he have a secret plan hidden away? His adversaries are convinced that he is banking on help that will never arrive. They are certain he will be left standing alone, face to face with his own disappointment. The rules of the proxy battle are set, and the time for talk is rapidly coming to an end. They sneer at what they perceive as a transparent, desperate tactic to survive. They fully expect him to drag others into his mess, banking on figures who have no interest in fighting for him. But they are dead wrong, and they are about to learn just how little he relies on them. The cold verdict is delivered. He will have to stand alone and fight for his own life. They vow to send their strongest to ensure that he understands the finality of his place in this world through his own death. As the pieces are set for this deadly duel, an unexpected shadow looms over the entire assembly. The sudden arrival of the clan head Kyle Ragnar shifts the atmosphere from tension to absolute dread. Everything Theo had planned for his first major quest is now in jeopardy. The secrets of the palace will have to wait, as a much more immediate danger has just stepped into the room. The arrival of his father is a massive, uncontrollable variable that threatens to shatter his entire strategy. He realizes that his carefully laid plans are on the brink of complete collapse. Why would his father appear now in the middle of such a volatile situation? He desperately tries to center himself, reminding himself that he must deal with the immediate threat before anything else. The room goes silent as the clan head commands his son to stand, the power radiating from him, leaving everyone breathless. Kyle admits he caught wind of the situation by pure chance, yet his presence feels far more calculated. He cuts straight to the heart of the matter, acknowledging the complex mess Theo has found himself in. He questions the proxy battle, demanding to know exactly who Theo intended to use as his substitute. Theo remains defiant, refusing to hide behind anyone else's strength. He declares that he had no intention of relying on others and was prepared to face the trial himself. His father watches him closely, testing his resolve, trying to see if there is any hesitation in his heart. Theo holds firm even under the intense pressure of his father's scrutiny. He is not someone who will break, no matter how much they try to force him into submission. The clan head's laughter booms through the hall, a roar of genuine approval for his son's unshakable spirit. His rivals are left stunned, watching as the patriarch acknowledges the boy they tried to crush. The audience watches in awe, witnessing a moment of rare respect being earned in the heat of conflict. Theo stays humble, offering thanks, but his mind is already spinning with new calculations. The proxy battle was never the end goal, it was always just a diversion. He never intended to fight in a mindless duel, but rather to use the platform to expose the truth. He has been waiting for the moment to speak without holding back, to show them all exactly what he has found. Deep in his pocket, he holds the key to his victory, the proof of a dark conspiracy. With that evidence, he could dismantle his enemies without drawing a single drop of blood. But his father has other ideas, presenting him with a completely different opportunity. Kyle Ragnar announces his desire to test his son, to see if he can withstand a single strike from the master himself. The trial is effectively halted, replaced by a challenge that carries its own set of lethal stakes. A single, devastating strike will decide everything. If Theo survives this test, the charges against him will be wiped clean instantly. The request to step outside feels like a death sentence to those who don't understand the depth of his father's intent. Observers realize that if a master like him is willing to strike, it means he has finally acknowledged his opponent. They watch in terror, wondering if the young man has the strength to survive such an overwhelming force. Many doubt he has the endurance to survive, but they fear the consequences if he actually succeeds. The pressure mounts as they pray for his failure before he can gain the favor of the clan head. They are desperate to stop him from rising, to stop him from gaining power in the eyes of their leader. They continue to whisper, questioning the bloodline and the heir, unaware that they are speaking in the presence of a predator. The clan head warns them, any vassal who speaks against his son's lineage will pay with their life. The command is absolute, effectively silencing the dissenters. The stage is set for the strike, and the tension is pushed to its absolute limit. His enemies are visibly shaken, realizing the game they were playing has been fundamentally altered. Even the most confident among them are now forced to reckon with the unpredictability of the situation. The conversation is cut short. The time for talk is over. Theo realizes the trajectory of his path has completely shifted, but he welcomes the chaos. He realizes that a strike from his father is a weight far greater than any duel he could have imagined. Yet, he isn't backing down, he's negotiating, demanding that if the challenge is harder, the reward must be greater. He eyes the prize that matters most, turning the trial toward the true heart of the palace secret. The air in the room turns deathly cold as the proposal hangs in the air, leaving everyone stunned. The clan head looks on with nothing but sheer disbelief at the audacity being displayed before him. To even suggest a deal with the head of the clan, it is absolute madness that defies all logic. His eyes narrow, filled with disdain as he watches the boy, believing this half-blood has completely lost his place. A deal requires equality between both parties, and in his eyes, the boy is nowhere near worthy of such a thing. He sneers internally, already convinced that this arrogance is nothing more than a shortcut to the boy's own destruction. The pressure is immense, but the challenge is issued. If he truly wants to lead, he must show he has the grit to back it up. With a cold, challenging glare, the clan head demands to know if anyone dares to oppose his decision. The atmosphere is suffocating, but the lack of resistance signals that the stage for this inevitable clash is set. With a dismissive tone, the order is given to prepare the grounds immediately. This is no longer just a confrontation, it is a trial that will test the boy's resolve right here and now. What was once a calculated trap to dispose of the boy has suddenly transformed into a platform for him to shine. The onlookers whisper to each other, dismissing any sense of concern for the boy's safety. Even if he has grown stronger, the gap in power is insurmountable. He is merely walking to his own grave. They are certain that surviving a single strike from the clan head is a feat even the strongest swordsman would fail to achieve. The consensus is absolute. He has to die here, and there is no escaping the fate that awaits him. He stands his ground, fully aware that the man across from him has already written his eulogy. But as the tension reaches a breaking point, a faint, knowing smirk plays across his lips. He knows that what they expect to happen is far from the reality that is about to unfold. The secrets hidden in his progression are far greater than anyone in this room could possibly imagine. Suspicion flickers in the clan head's eyes, wondering if some illicit means fueled such a sudden transformation. He pauses, sensing something fundamentally different about the boy, but he cannot quite put his finger on the cause. Ultimately, he decides it does not matter. He will crush the boy regardless of how he attained this strength. Even the legendary 9 dragons have failed to detect the shift in his capabilities, a testament to his hidden growth. The clan head reminds him that regardless of the animosity, they are still bound by the same blood. The call to arms is clear, and the atmosphere becomes thick with the weight of the coming blow. He claims he would usually reach for his greatsword, but he opts for a rusted blade to drive home his point of superiority. With such a massive disparity in skill and status, he mockingly asks if there are any objections to this handicap. The reply is instantaneous and respectful, concealing the burning fire beneath the surface. The raw pressure radiating from the clan head's mere fighting spirit is enough to make the air itself tremble. Deep inside, he can feel the surge of power. His strength has effectively tripled thanks to his hard-earned rewards. The path he took during the tutorial was harrowing, but the payoff was worth every moment of agony. He had consumed the experience elixir, a rare catalyst that pushed his limits beyond the breaking point. It was a gamble that paid off, granting him 5 precious levels that he funneled entirely into his physical strength. He stares at his status screen, seeing the potential that is finally beginning to bloom. The feeling of this newfound power is intoxicating, finally pulling him out of the ordinary and into the extraordinary. He knows this single moment will define the rest of his life, and he will not waste it. The clash of blades sends a shockwave through the hall, a testament to the sheer force behind the strike. He focuses all his concentration, locking eyes with the incoming attack. The pressure is overwhelming, but he knows he has to find the opening in the rhythm of the master. Every nerve in his body is focused on the movement of that steel blade. He pushes through the agony, his grip tightening as he prepares to meet the overwhelming force. The collision is cataclysmic, a blinding flash of light erupting between them. He sees the line of the strike perfectly, the culmination of everything he has been working toward. The impact tears through the floor, sending debris and dust swirling through the air. The power unleashed is beyond anything they expected, a force that shakes the very foundations of the palace. Through the smoke, the realization sets in that the impossible has just occurred. The sword snaps upon impact, a sign that the boy's strength has truly reached a new tier. A flicker of genuine acknowledgement crosses the clan head's face. He has finally found a son worthy of the name. The realization hits the observers. The boy didn't just survive, he survived the impossible. With the strike finished, the system confirms his incredible feat, marking the end of the sudden life-or-death quest. The rewards flood his vision. The long-awaited inventory authority is finally his. Along with it, the mysterious blue key appears, a relic that hints at much larger secrets. Exhaustion crashes over him, and as the world fades to black, he collapses, his body finally reaching its limit. He wakes to the scent of luxury, his mother's frantic, tear-filled eyes meeting his. She is completely overwhelmed, recounting her terror at hearing about the encounter with the clan head's blade. She begs him to move, checking for fractures, her voice trembling with genuine maternal fear. He offers a reassuring smile, trying to calm her racing heart. The transition is complete, the old order of the palace having been swept away in his absence. The former masters have been cast aside, and the power dynamic has shifted irrevocably. He realizes the scale of what has happened, wondering what this means for his future. He reflects on the title he has claimed, feeling the weight of the path he is now forced to walk. The system confirms the completion of the first major hurdle, but the true challenge is just beginning. His gaze drifts toward the window, looking out at the sprawling grounds of the palace he has claimed. The pressure in the room shifts. It is time for him to uncover the secrets buried within these walls. Elsewhere, fury simmers as the reality of the situation sets in for those who lost their foothold. They cannot fathom how they were forced to vacate what was supposed to be their eternal property. The panic is palpable, but it quickly transforms into a cold, lethal resolve. He stands in the shadows, his eyes burning with a singular, bloodthirsty purpose. The order is given without hesitation. The boy must not survive to see his next awakening ceremony. The command is absolute, leaving no room for negotiation or mercy. The target is clear, and the decision to eliminate him is final. Everything has spiraled in a direction that was never part of the original plan. The path forward is now shrouded in uncertainty and grave danger. He walks through the halls, satisfied that he managed to seize the prize without revealing his ultimate ace. He pulls up his interface, realizing that his gains are far more substantial than he initially hoped. The inventory system feels surreal, something he never thought he would have the power to control. He isn't quite sure how it functions, but he knows instinctively that it will be a game changer. He tests his new authority, pulling items into reality as he explores the capabilities of his new tool. Holding the blue key, he knows he is holding the master key to the mystery that defines his existence in this place. He knew he couldn't leave this place empty-handed, not when there was still so much to gain. With a determined smirk, he decided it was time to put his potential to the test and see exactly what kind of reward awaited him. A hidden cave deep within the palace. This was clearly more than just a room. It was a quest waiting to be conquered. He stepped into the darkness, his senses sharpening as he prepared for whatever lurked in the shadows. A low, guttural growl echoed through the cavern, announcing the arrival of a predator that was far from ordinary. A massive wolf emerged, its eyes burning with a primal, bloodthirsty hunger. The creature was colossal, a true demonic beast that stood as an overwhelming obstacle in his path. He readied his weapon, eyes locked on the beast. He wasn't about to back down from a fight of this magnitude. The wolf lunged with terrifying speed, but he stood his ground, meeting the impact with his shield. The force of the collision rattled his bones, a brutal reminder that this monster possessed strength far beyond his own. He held firm, teeth gritted against the pressure, refusing to yield even an inch of ground to the beast. "You're pretty strong, Mutt," he hissed, though he knew he couldn't rely on pure strength alone to win this. The struggle intensified, the raw power of the wolf pushing him to his absolute limit. He danced back, narrowly dodging a strike, calculating his next move with icy precision. The beast roared, its massive jaw snapping inches from his face, but he remained focused on the opening he desperately needed. Every swing of his sword met the beast's thick hide, rebounding with a hollow clang that signaled how futile his frantic attacks really were. He realized quickly that his standard approach wouldn't cut it. The creature was too fast, and its defense was nearly impenetrable. It was no ordinary wolf, it was a nightmare, and the cold reality settled in that this battle was going to be a brutal trial. He recalled the legendary, singular strike he had witnessed, a flash of pure, blinding light that cut through everything. If he wanted to survive, he had to stop swinging wildly and start perfecting that one decisive motion. He fixated on that memory, dissecting the technique in his mind, trying to grasp the secret to that breathtaking arc of light. He knew that replicating such perfection wouldn't be easy, but it was the only way to bridge the gap between him and the monster. He shifted his stance, channeling every ounce of his intent into a single focused point, searching for the rhythm of a master. The wolf moved again, but this time he wasn't just reacting, he was waiting for the perfect moment to execute his final strike. The air grew heavy with anticipation as he prepared to turn his entire being into a weapon of singular intent. He swung, his blade cutting through the air with a newfound sharpness, leaving a trail of death in its wake. The technique connected, a singular devastating strike that finally silenced the beast's roar. With the threat finally ended, he stood tall, the weight of the victory settling over him as he caught his breath. He realized that his path forward was paved in speed and precision. He would sharpen his arts until they were as lethal as the strike he mimicked. 2 months had passed, and the halls of the academy were buzzing with restless energy as students gathered to talk about the young master's disappearance. The rumors were getting out of hand, and the constant influx of challengers looking to spar was becoming a nuisance he didn't have time for. They claimed the young master had vanished, speculating that he was hiding because he couldn't keep up with the legend surrounding his name. He was a ghost in the training grounds, leaving everyone to wonder if his past feats were nothing more than embellished lies. Whispers of his cowardice spread like wildfire, with many convinced he had fled the moment the pressure became too great. He had supposedly crushed the Scaled Dragon Society, But since there were no witnesses to the event, the skeptics were eager to tear his reputation apart. The atmosphere turned volatile as insults were hurled, with critics openly mocking his absence and demanding he show his face. Sybil stood her ground against the taunts, refusing to let them disgrace his name while he was away. The insults escalated into a confrontation, the tension in the training ground reaching a breaking point as the challengers grew bold. The air crackled with hostility. It was clear that patience had worn thin, and this was no longer just talk, it was a declaration of war. The challenge was laid out, and the dropouts prepared to strike, completely unaware of the shadow looming over them. A calm, cold presence cut through the chaos, bringing the confrontation to an abrupt and chilling halt. The appearance of Ray Ragnar silenced the room instantly. The atmosphere shifted from aggressive to terrified. He ignored the distractions, his focus entirely on his own path, unaffected by the petty squabbles of those beneath him. He returned to the sanctuary of the cave, where the cycle of growth and slaughter continued to fuel his ascent. The training was brutal, a relentless grind against beasts that forced him to sharpen his instincts and refine his power. He stood amidst the remnants of his struggle, his body battered but his resolve stronger than ever. A series of notifications echoed in his mind. He had finally ascended, his level climbing as he broke through the barriers that once held him back. Survival isn't just about skill, it's about having the right tools when your life hangs by a thread. A single potion was all that stood between him and the darkness, a bittersweet reminder of how close he's come to death. The grueling journey has been relentless, but with every trial, his strength grows and the path ahead clears. 2 months have vanished in the blink of an eye, and the silence in the dungeon feels heavy, signaling that something far worse is drawing near. The sudden eerie stillness confirms it. The boss has arrived. Stepping into the depths of the 5th floor, he finds himself alone, confronting the reality of his dwindling resources. A familiar, discarded object catches his eye, once thought to be worthless. It was a birthday gift from his mother, a memory he had long ago cast aside in his past life. Left to gather dust and regret, he finally realizes the true craftsmanship hidden within the blade. Forged from white snow steel, it's a weapon far more formidable than he ever cared to acknowledge. Even now, his gaze remains sharp, dissecting the steel as he prepares for what's ahead. The doors creak open, exposing him to the world he once tried to avoid. The celebration was loud and overwhelming, a stark contrast to the cold isolation he chooses now. His mother's desperate attempt to reach out only fueled the fire of his past defiance. He had no time for trivial displays of affection while the weight of his future and his past pressed down on him. Cold and dismissive, he shut them out, refusing to let sentimentality dictate his path. He had learned the hard way that birthright and expensive gifts mean nothing if the blood within you isn't tempered by power. Dismissing the crowd, he turns his back on the life he once knew, walking toward a destiny he intends to carve for himself. The weight of his past life's failures burns in his mind, and he vows that he will never repeat those mistakes. The dungeon pulses with malice, and a prompt warns of the encroaching danger. A massive, lethal claw tears through the silence, announcing the arrival of his challenger. A chilling presence floods the cavern, but as the dust settles, he realizes his opponent is a lesser drake. The Ragnars are said to carry the blood of dragons, and this quest seems to mock that legacy. The final boss of this trial is draconic in nature, a cruel irony that he can't ignore. Is it a cruel twist of fate, or is something deeper at play here? He draws his blade, the steel whispering as it leaves the scabbard. He knows the cost of failure, and he knows that only victory will satisfy the requirements of his quest. The beast lunges with terrifying speed, forcing him into a desperate struggle for survival. The system message confirms it. He has crossed the threshold into the boss's domain. The pressure is immense. Can a human truly stand against the might of a dragon? It may be a lesser drake, but it is a dragon nonetheless, and he is its only target. He prepares his stance, banking everything on a single decisive move. He calls upon the single flash, a technique he has honed through countless battles with dire wolves. It won't match his father's legendary skill, but it is all he has. He pushes his dragon heart to its absolute limit, desperate to draw blood. The clash is violent, but the beast is far more resilient than he anticipated. His strike barely grazes the monster. The true challenge has only just begun. He is forced back, the reality of the gap between them sinking in. His eyes lock onto the beast, and despite the danger, he begins to see a path to victory. He channels the jester's footwork, moving with a speed that defies the beast's reach. He dances around the dragon, turning its raw power against itself. He realizes he's outmatched in brute force, but he can win if he is smart. He feints, drawing the dragon's attention with a basic strike. The beast bellows, a primal sound that rattles his very bone. The drake's sheer presence is a weapon, radiating a fear that paralyzes the spirit. A system notification flashes red. The fear is real and it's slowing his reaction. He feels his body stiffen, his movements hampered by the psychological weight of the beast. He struggles to find his rhythm, the air thick with the scent of blood and terror. He grits his teeth, forcing himself to move despite the crippling status effect. He needs to strike the dragon's weak point, the only way to end this fight quickly. His body rebels, screaming for rest, but his will holds firm. The dragon's claw smashes into the ground, sending shockwaves through his frame. He narrowly dodges the impact, his heart hammering against his ribs. A flash of brilliance erupts in the cave as he barely avoids a lethal blow. He regroups, panting, realizing exactly why this creature is considered a boss. The beast is fast, aggressive, and relentless. He dodges again, a desperate scramble that barely keeps him alive. He lunges for an opening, his sword singing through the air. Every muscle in his body is pushed to the brink of collapse. He knows he has one shot, and he knows he cannot miss. The dragon's maw opens, preparing to consume him whole. He finds it, the reverse scale, the only spot where the armor failed. He leaps, throwing his entire being into the strike. The blade finds its mark, slicing through the scales with a sickening crunch. The force of the impact shakes the very cavern walls. He lands, his vision blurring, but the dragon staggers back. He drives the blade home, putting everything he has into the final push. The beast howls in agony, a sound of absolute defeat. He pulls his blade free, blood dripping from the edge as he stares down his conquest. He stands victorious, though the toll on his body is immense. The dragon's eye narrows, a final surge of malice before it collapses. He wipes the blood from his brow, his breathing finally beginning to steady. He looks at his hand, the sword still firm in his grip. The battle is over, and he has proven that even in this life he is a force to be reckoned with. Back in the world of men, a new challenge rises. 3 years of training have led to this exact moment. The other warriors watch on, waiting to see who will be the first to test their mettle. They are hungry for glory, believing they have finally caught up. They don't realize the depth of the abyss they are trying to cross. He looks at them with disdain, a cold loser escaping his lip. His words cut deeper than any blade, igniting their fury. They demand a duel, obsessed with the chance to prove their worth. They fight for the privilege of facing the one they truly fear. The tension in the arena is palpable, a powder keg waiting for a spark. They clash, blades ringing out like bells in the silence. They fight with everything they have, desperate to prove they aren't the weak link. But their skirmish is interrupted by an arrival that changes everything. Someone has arrived, and the atmosphere shifts instantly. The arrogance of the duelists is silenced by a sudden, overwhelming aura. He steps forward, an invitation to a fight he has been craving. He ignores their petty bickering, his mind elsewhere. The air turns heavy, a killing intent so sharp it makes them gasp. He has finally returned, and the weight of his presence is undeniable. He steps through the smoke, his silhouette casting a long, terrifying shadow. The duelists freeze, their bravado evaporating in an instant. He stares them down, and for the first time they understand true power. The dragon's fear was nothing compared to the aura that surrounds him now. The stage is set, and the true test is about to begin. The massive beast began thrashing uncontrollably the moment he touched its reverse scale, a desperate struggle for survival. He braced himself, truly fearing that this might be the end of his journey. Luck was on his side. The creature eventually exhausted itself, leaving it vulnerable to his final assault. He knew the scale remained the beast's only weakness, a final chink in its armor. He realized these remnants could serve as perfect enhancement materials for his worn-out weapons. He collected the drake's claw, determined to make the most of the harvest. It was time to put these materials to use and restore his weapon to its former glory. His blade had been pushed to its limit during that grueling hunt, and it was screaming for repairs. A sudden notification appeared, revealing a skill he had only ever heard of in legend. Dragon killing intent, a technique reserved for the chosen, yet somehow it now belonged to him. He couldn't believe his luck. The opportunity to test such a forbidden power had finally arrived. He couldn't help but feel skeptical about its usefulness in a place as dangerous as Ragnar. After all, that territory was crawling with powerhouses capable of crushing anyone in their path. He received the final confirmation. The quest was officially complete. A mysterious object appeared, leaving him questioning its connection to the path that lay ahead. He tucked the item away for now, deciding to unravel its secrets when the timing was right. Bone-deep exhaustion washed over him, and all he wanted was to return to his room and sleep. Before he could even take a step, a frantic voice called out, shattering the silence. His attendant rushed forward, clearly shaken by something that had just occurred. He brushed off the concern, masking his own fatigue as he demanded to know what was wrong. A brawl had broken out in the training grounds, and the situation was quickly spiraling out of control. Shortly after arriving, a wave of suffocating pressure descended upon the arena. The air turned heavy as a terrifying aura engulfed the battlefield, chilling everyone to the bone. The pressure was immense, a clear declaration of murderous intent directed straight at him. His opponent taunted him, fully expecting an easy victory as they charged in to end the fight. But the blow he expected to land was deflected with almost insulting ease. His opponent froze in shock, unable to comprehend how their strike had been turned aside so effortlessly. Standing before him was Hulkus Lanky, a man known for his brutal strength and savage fighting style. Hulkus had always been considered the weakest of the Northern Hounds, lacking both finesse and strategy. Yet when it came to raw, unadulterated power, the man had never been matched in his clan. The very sword that terrified so many was now being parried by his own hand. He realized he was no longer just blocking, he was finding openings to counterattack. Every bit of effort he had poured into his training was finally paying off in real time. He checked his status, noting the steady climb in his level as he held his ground against a true powerhouse. He had managed to block the attack, but the recoil still sent a jolt through his body. His opponent's legendary toughness turned out to be a blessing. It meant he didn't have to hold back. With a single decisive move, his opponent finally collapsed, completely incapacitated. The crowd erupted in cheers, stunned by the unexpected display of dominance. He couldn't understand the sudden excitement. He was simply defending himself. A young girl approached him in the biting cold, clearly worried about his state. She insisted on wrapping him in warmth, concerned by his lack of proper winter attire. She noticed he was still shivering and decided that he needed to get out of the elements immediately. She took his hand, guiding him away from the cold toward the safety of her home. That evening, he found himself within the grand halls of Camellia Palace. His mother greeted him with warm congratulations, celebrating his newly earned title. She urged him to maintain this momentum until the upcoming awakening ceremony, full of hope for his future. She insisted he try the delicacies she had prepared, each dish more exquisite than the last. Deep in the frigid lands of Winterra, the Basque workshop looms like a silent giant, its reputation for creating legendary weapons rivaling that of an industrial factory. But the true source of its intimidating fame isn't just the sheer scale of the operation, it is the woman who stands at its helm. She is a master blacksmith, a title so prestigious that only 2 other artisans in the entire Ragnar clan hold it, earning her the title of the Elf of Capitalism incarnate. To the world, she is the demon craftsman, Kirsten, a name that commands respect and fear in equal measure. As the young lord approaches, the air shifts, and the master of the workshop turns, locking eyes with her unexpected guests. She doesn't offer a warm welcome. Instead, she greets her own daughter with a chillingly cold reminder that their bond as mother and child was severed the very day she chose to run away. Stunned by this revelation, the young lord struggles to process the truth. If the legendary demon craftsman is his mother's birth mother, that makes him part high elf. He barely has time to wonder if this strange, newfound lineage is the secret behind his own striking appearance before the tension in the room spikes. Kirsten demands to know why her estranged daughter has finally returned, and the answer is as sharp as a blade. She is here to return a piece of trash. The master craftsman scoffs, insulted that her masterpiece is being labeled as a defective product. As the debate intensifies, she coldly asks who was foolish enough to wield her blade, only for the mother to proudly point to the young lord behind her. Kirsten's eyes narrow as she turns her gaze toward him, unimpressed by his presence. The mother wastes no time defending her son, asserting that he is the genius who will eventually rule the entire Ragnar clan. Caught in the middle of this clash, the young lord steps forward, offering a formal, respectful greeting to the legendary blacksmith. Kirsten acknowledges him with a flicker of recognition, but her focus remains sharp and businesslike. The sword is brought out and the air grows heavy with the weight of the accusation. The young lord confirms he was the one wielding it, bracing himself for her reaction. Kirsten remains unmoved, standing firm on her assessment that the weapon is defective and that this will be a long, difficult conversation. Without another word, she beckons them deeper into the depths of her workshop. As they walk, the young lord finally finds the courage to ask how his mother is connected to such a dangerous and renowned figure. The answer is delivered with blunt indifference. The connection is exactly as he has already heard. He realizes just how little he truly knows about his mother's past and the mysterious history she keeps hidden away. She reveals that although it lasted only 6 months, Kirsten was the foster mother who raised her. The young lord watches them, realizing there is a complex, untold story beneath their strained relationship. She explains that Kirsten's heart is captured by anything she finds beautiful, whether it be jewels, art, or even the people she chooses to take in. She was taken in, not out of duty, but because she caught the master's eye, and she assumes that she must have been deeply cherished. But Kirsten abruptly shuts down the nostalgia, calling the past pointless and not worth dwelling on. Her daughter isn't fooled, sensing that beneath the harsh exterior, there is a lingering sentimentality. She presses further, demanding to know the truth behind her departure from the workshop. The truth is stark. She simply walked away, throwing everything aside to chase a future as the wife of the Ragnar clan head. Kirsten speaks of it with biting disdain, viewing that sacrifice as the act of a fool who walked willingly into a miserable life. Yet, even in her anger, there is a grudging acknowledgement that surviving the cutthroat politics of the clan is no small feat. The conversation turns back to the blade, as Kirsten insults her own daughter's choice to use her work as a gift for her son. She scoffs at the lack of grace, unable to fathom how someone could be so shameless. The mother bristles, firing back, questioning why she would be so cruel in front of the boy. Kirsten doesn't back down, bluntly asking if she's wrong to state the obvious. Standing on the sidelines, the young lord is struck by how bizarre this family dynamic is. He has never seen his mother act this way before. A wave of guilt washes over him as he realizes he knew almost nothing about her life before his birth. He wonders if he was too blinded by his own obsession with the clan's power in his past life to ever truly see the woman who raised him. He watches Kirsten closely, sensing that for all her harsh words, she holds a genuine hidden care for his mother. It forces him to question his past failures, wondering why someone as powerful as the demon craftsman never intervened in his previous life. He swallows his thoughts, following her into the inner sanctum of the workshop. She leads them into her private office, a place of secrets and prestige. She confronts him directly, asking if he possesses a relic of the primordial dragon. The question catches him off guard, bringing up the legends of the clan's ancestors and their hidden treasures scattered across Winterra. He tries to make sense of her inquiry, but his confusion is palpable. Kirsten grows impatient, interpreting his hesitation as a pathetic attempt to feign ignorance. She snaps, demanding to know how her masterpiece could have been reduced to such a damaged state if not for the influence of a relic. She spent her heart and soul forging that blade, and she refuses to accept anything less than an artifact of immense power as the cause of its destruction. She demands compensation for the sheer cost of her work, her eyes burning with professional pride. The young lord is bewildered, wondering why she is so fixated on the existence of a relic. Kirsten decides that explanations are a waste of time and chooses to show him the truth instead. She forces him to look, and suddenly, he sees it, a faint, unmistakable blue glow. It is the exact same energy signature he witnessed at the entrance to the dungeon in Camellia Palace. He realizes it's not just a weapon, it is a catalyst for a quest. Kirsten admits she sees nothing, yet the look in his eyes confirms that he has discovered the secret she has been guarding. The mystery of the primordial dragon's relic begins to unravel. Legend tells that in the ancient age of myths, the dragon itself ripped out a fang to forge the ultimate blade. It was a monster's sword, a relic of impossible power known as the White Moonlight Blade. She holds it out to him, offering a challenge that is as much a death sentence as it is an opportunity. He can take it, but she warns him that the process of being chosen by such a relic might cost him his very life. She asks if he is truly willing to take that gamble. A system window flashes before him, declaring that the path of the successor is open, and he is now forced to choose whether to be claimed by the blade. He reaches out, his eyes burning with a newfound dangerous ambition. The decision is made, and he knows that if he survives, the power of the relic will be his to command. The sword is a piece of history, and he is determined to make it his own. Kirsten watches him with sharp, testing eyes, ready to see if he has the strength to stand up to the burden of the relic. With a predatory grin, the young lord accepts the challenge, fully aware that his life is about to change forever. The White Moonlight Blade, a legendary weapon tied to the leader of Black Snow, one of the Elite 9 dragons. Yet, the truth about this sword was buried in blood. Almost everyone who laid eyes on it, or even dared to speak its name, ended up dead or vanished without a trace. And yet, by a twist of cruel fate, Theo found himself staring directly at its true, terrifying form. He couldn't help but wonder why the Black Dragon hadn't simply silenced him on the spot. The weight of the situation crashed down on him, forcing him to ask himself, "What do I do now?" The realization was chilling. The Black Dragon's own relic, a treasure of the primordial dragon, was sitting right there in front of him. 4 years ago, he had crossed paths with the Black Dragon, and to think that Kirsten had held onto this blade all this time. A dark, singular resolve ignited within him, drowning out the fear. He decided then and there that the sword would be his, no matter the cost. The atmosphere in the room shifted, feeling hauntingly similar to the pressure he'd faced at the Camellia Palace. With the blue key in his hand, he realized this was his only chance to claim it. He stepped forward, ready to unlock the secrets bound by the dungeon's trial. The air crackled with energy as he prepared to bridge the gap between himself and the artifact. Suddenly, the familiar, suffocating grip of the void pulled him in. He was back, cast into a nightmare realm, wondering how he had returned to the Rose Palace. The memories flooded back. He remembered how painfully weak he had been before, a vulnerability he refused to repeat. He knew he needed far more power if he was going to crush the Camellia Palace and defeat Rendon. The entity before him tried to weave its influence, attempting to hijack his mind by twisting his own desires against him. But it underestimated its prey. This wasn't just any monster, and Theo wasn't going to be toyed with. He stared the entity down, demanding to know how it dared to challenge him. He laughed in the face of its intimidation, declaring that he had already conquered the very despair it was trying to use against him. He scoffed at the monster's attempt to tempt him, brushing off its measly displays of power. He saw through the creature's current form, realizing this was a mere shadow of the giant beast he remembered. He taunted the creature, noting how it had shrunk from its former 10-meter stature down to something he could easily look in the eye. He surmised that the long years spent in a seal had stripped away its grandeur. Regardless of the cause, he realized this diminished state was a stroke of absolute luck for him. The creature tried to negotiate, pleading to discuss things like civilized beings. Theo refused to play along, asserting his dominance over the beast. He lunged forward, locking his grip onto his prize. The creature panicked, begging for its life as Theo held the upper hand. The overwhelming force of the struggle sent shockwaves through the chamber. He looked down at the beast, unfazed by its pathetic resistance. He commanded the creature to submit, asserting his absolute ownership. With the battle decided, he claimed the white moonlight sword. "My dear son," his mother's voice shattered the tension, filled with pure, unadulterated terror. She rushed to him, demanding to know what had happened and why he was in such a state. The blacksmith stood by, shocked and bewildered by the scene unfolding before her. She confessed that she never intended for him to forge such a dangerous weapon, terrified by what she was witnessing. The energy surrounding him was volatile, a monster's power coursing through his very bloodstream. She trembled, confessing she had never seen anything like this before. She admitted that knowing he already possessed one relic, she had foolishly hoped this would be safe. She wept, swearing that if anything happened to him, she could never forgive herself. The sight of her grief brought him back to his senses, the exhaustion of the battle finally catching up to him. He reassured her with a calm smile, telling her that there was no need for such alarm. The blue light intensified as the system registered his achievement. The white moonlight sword was officially his. He realized the battle had been easier than expected, partly because the griffin's seal had been freshly broken. He knew the creature's psychological traps simply hadn't stood a chance against his resolve. The power flooded his system, and the notification confirmed a massive surge in his magic. His power had skyrocketed, breaking past the threshold of 200. His very magic was evolving, beginning to take on a divine quality. His strength had officially reached the tier of a high-ranked swordsman. The workshop was a wreck, and the sight of it was enough to make anyone's heart sink. Theo's frantic cries echoed through the chamber, mourning the destruction of his precious workplace. The sheer scale of the blast left him reeling, realizing just how dangerous his latest experiment had become. He gripped the blade, his hands trembling as he realized it had drank every drop of his magic power. That surge of energy was unlike anything he had felt before, leaving him breathless and exposed. He was faster than even he could process, and the realization hit him like a physical blow. The intensity of the situation made it clear he was playing with forces far beyond his control. A familiar, eccentric voice pierced the tension, mocking his lack of magical finesse. It was a sharp, biting critique that cut deeper than the steel he was holding. She couldn't believe her eyes, questioning if he had truly achieved such power through the blade's edge alone. Her eyes widened, seeing not just a student, but a prodigy, and in that moment, she knew he was her grandson. It was a realization that shifted everything. This young man was the key to their future. She didn't waste a second, immediately positioning herself as his new patron to secure his allegiance. Money flowed like water as she made her offer, desperate to tie him to the Basque workshop. She saw the potential for greatness, and she intended to use him as the ultimate advertisement for her craft. Theo looked at her, his eyes sharp and analytical, seeing right through the facade to the greed underneath. He knew exactly what she wanted, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. Overcome with emotion, someone close to him could only gasp at the transformation unfolding before them. The tension in the air was thick, a silent understanding passing between them that would change their paths forever. The gears of fate were turning, and Theo was ready to step out of the shadows. He handed over the loot, a trophy from a fearsome drake, as a gesture of good faith to repair the damage. The craftsmanship was undeniable. It was a clear sign of the power he had already started to command. There was a begrudging respect in the air, a sense that this boy was destined for something massive. Even the most hardened veterans couldn't help but acknowledge the strength radiating from him. The demon craftsman had returned, and the atmosphere shifted instantly as the two forces met. There was no warmth in the greeting, only the heavy weight of past grievances and lingering questions. He demanded to know why she had appeared here of all places, his patience wearing thin. A dark presence watched from above, a silent witness to the rising tensions in the clan. The raven's eyes glowed with a sinister light, sensing the brewing storm. It was time for a final test. The steel clashed with a roar that shook the very foundations of the courtyard. Theo moved with a precision that caught his opponent off guard, his blade dancing through the air. The duel was intense, a flurry of strikes that left no room for hesitation or doubt. Every movement was calculated, a display of raw skill that left the onlookers breathless. The blade sang as it cut through the air, finding gaps that shouldn't have existed. He was no longer the boy they once knew. He was evolving with every single strike. The crowd stared in disbelief, the onlookers struggling to comprehend the display of mastery in front of them. It had been 6 months of grueling change, and the results were starting to show in the most terrifying way. His opponent gritted his teeth, feeling the pressure mount as Theo began to turn the tide. If he managed to awaken his true power today, there would be no stopping him. The air crackled with anticipation, a silent prediction that a monster was about to be unleashed. With a swift, powerful strike, he sent his opponent reeling, ending the exchange on his own terms. It was a moment of realization. The boy had become a force of nature. The clash of metal rang out, a final definitive statement of his newfound strength. The momentum was entirely on his side, and the conclusion seemed inevitable. He landed, composed and lethal, ready to claim the future he had been promised. It was all coming together now. His efforts were finally paying off in the most spectacular fashion. The battle had left them both exhausted, but the look in Theo's eyes promised that this was only the beginning. A faint smile touched his lips, a silent victory in the face of so much adversity. The recognition he had been fighting for was finally within his grasp. He stood tall, the weight of his progress heavy on his shoulders but clear in his actions. Even in the middle of a formal setting, the tension between the participants was palpable. He had pushed past his limits, and for the first time he felt truly ready for what was to come. A moment of silence followed, the weight of the realization hanging heavy in the air. The crowd watched him, no longer just a participant, but a contender for the very top. He left the stage, his mind already set on the next challenge waiting at central headquarters. He moved toward the heart of the power, the place where his fate would truly be decided. The location was grand, but it was just another stage for him to conquer. His arrival drew eyes from every corner, the whispers following him like a shadow. He walked with purpose, ignoring the gazes of the curious and the skeptical alike. The sheer number of people gathered was a testament to the importance of the day. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him, knowing what was expected of his family name. It was the most critical event of the year, and he had everything to lose. Everyone wanted to shine, to be recognized as the strongest, but he had a different goal. They fought for honor and acknowledgement, but he fought to prove that his path was the right one. Every eye in the house, from the lowest attendant to the clan head, was fixed on the stage. Kyle Ragnar sat in his seat, a man whose word could dictate the rise or fall of anyone in the room. He observed with cold detachment, his presence commanding absolute silence. Alongside him sat the legends of the past, their gaze sharp and unforgiving. Hilda Ragnar watched intently, her presence a bridge between the past and the uncertain future. It was impossible to believe she had lived as long as the legends claimed. She carried her age with a terrifying grace. The atmosphere was tense, but seeing her present brought a strange sense of stability to the proceeding. The judge stepped forward, his voice booming as he signaled the start of the trial. It was a roar that commanded attention, filling the hall with the sound of destiny being set in motion. The stage was set, the field of blades shimmering under the cold light. A massive wall of steel stood before them, a final barrier that separated the weak from the worthy. The candidates looked on with trepidation, realizing the sheer difficulty of the task ahead. The judge declared the challenge, The steel was forged to be impenetrable to anything less than pure, focused power. No ordinary weapon would even scratch the surface of that white snow steel. Only those who had mastered their mana could hope to leave a mark on its cold surface. He held up the elixir, the prize that would grant them the power to succeed or leave them empty-handed. The choice was simple: drink, awaken the mana hall, or fail before you even begin. Each participant prepared themselves, the gravity of the moment settling in as they realized the depth of the cut would decide their future. The trials had begun, and Theo was the first to answer the call. The awakening ceremony, a moment that once marked the beginning of his greatest regret. He stands in the familiar silence of the hall, trying to shake off the lingering nerves of a life he has already lived. The path ahead is clear, yet the weight of his past memories presses down on him. He knows the risks all too well. He has been here before and he cannot afford to fail again. He swallows the soma, bracing himself for the surge of power that once broke him. In his previous life, this very act had shattered his Dantian, turning his potential into dust. But this time, the outcome will be different. He refuses to let history repeat itself. He focuses, pouring his intent into the mana, refusing to let it spiral out of his control. The observers watch in shock, paralyzed by the sheer unbridled force of the wave he is unleashing. They can't believe their eyes. He is unleashing a torrent of energy that should be beyond his reach. Even those with experience know that mismanaging this power is a fast track to becoming a cripple. He realizes that for the talented, this power is a double-edged sword that can easily break them. The pressure in the room is immense, testing the limits of everyone present. His mastery over the surge is becoming apparent to those who doubted him. He has realized the terrifying potential of his own body, pushing through the chaos. The mana finds its place, settling into his Dantian exactly as he demanded. He reflects on the unfairness of his own strength, a dragon heart combined with a mana hall. It's almost disappointing how simple it was to achieve what once seemed impossible. Successes come too easily, a stark contrast to the agony of his past life. The restriction is finally lifted. He is now free to wield the power that was once denied to him. With this massive well of energy at his disposal, he is finally ready to let go. He doesn't need to hold back anymore. It is time to unleash everything. The sheer force of his strike leaves the onlookers breathless and stunned. The slash is unprecedented, leaving seasoned warriors struggling to comprehend what they just witnessed. They compare him to Thorkel, realizing they are watching something historic unfold. Is it even possible for a beginner to control this level of raw destruction? The destructive path of his sword speaks for itself, carving through the arena. His display of power is absolute, leaving no room for argument. He has reached a starting point that dwarfs the efforts of his peers. The shockwave of his performance rippled through the spectators, forcing them to take notice. The influential figures of the clan are already looking at him with newfound hungry interest. He has caught the eye of Hilda, a crucial step in his long-term plan. He knows her value. The heart of Garuda is the prize he needs to secure. Hilda watches from above, her gaze fixed on him with a dangerous, calculating curiosity. He carefully calculates his next move, keeping his true objective hidden behind a calm exterior. Even after the chaos, he stays composed, fully aware of the eyes upon him. He knows exactly who he needs to win over to reach his goals. The power he radiates is impossible to ignore, and he enjoys the realization that he is finally a player in this game. His performance has solidified his reputation, and the pieces are starting to fall into place. His blade rings out, clear and sharp, echoing his dominance in the arena. The impact is overwhelming, silencing the critics who once looked down on him. He stands tall, a man who has conquered his own limitations. Victory is sweet, and it is only the beginning of what he has in store. He is not just passing, he is rewriting the standards of the entire clan. The others watch in awe, realizing they are witnessing a turning point. He has proven his worth, and the path forward is now wide open. He steps aside, the dust settling, leaving his mark on the stone. His rivals are left in the shadow of his overwhelming success. Even those who underestimated him are forced to acknowledge his terrifying growth. The four hounds of the north have performed, but none can match the height of his achievement.